Chapter 52. Return it to me, this is my belt. Woo. Woo woo. For it, I have given up everything, why must you take away my last hope? The dark elf girl is already crying her eyes out, but she still hugs Crocer's waist tightly. Her tears have already drenched his chest. Let go. Crocer also wants to cry but no tears come out. He only picked up a belt from a child of greed. He only tried it because it was pretty, why did he end up like this? On the other hand, the colleagues of the 4 Halls 1 Courtyard look at Crocer with a face full of sympathy. Alright, let us ignore the weird smile and mysterious saliva of some people and treat it as sympathy. You took away my last hope, I will fight it out with you. Victoria, who is still underage, clenches her fist, intending to perish together with Crocer. I am worse off than you, I still have a fiancé. I still have 50 more years before I plan to go back to my hometown to get married. Woo. Woo woo. Thinking about his childhood sweetheart in his hometown, finally, the already weak Crocer sits on the ground and starts crying. Woo woo. Why are we so unlucky? We should be men. Looking at Crocer, who is in the same boat, Victoria's waving fist finally drops down. In the end, the 2 ill-fated girls hug each other and cry. I shake my head helplessly. Although I didn't do it on purpose, this is indeed related to me. Maybe I should think of a way to end this farce. Actually, in this world, necromancy is much more effective than plastic surgery or surgery. Organ transplants can't even be considered a small surgery, if they don't suggest using other people's organs. How about asking them if I can help them with a small surgery? In the end, I give up on this method of treating the symptoms but not the root of the problem. I feel that if I were to say it out loud, not only will I be beaten up, my remaining dignity and integrity will be swept away. Let's find another way. At this moment, the system jumps out to make its presence known and find trouble. Ding. Alright, the system also doesn't remember how many people have been unlucky because of this, but this woman is so pitiful that even the system can't stand it anymore, so I will give you a little reward. Reward, honorary title, Natural Bane, after equipping, comes with the passive skill God of Plague Halo. This title cannot be hidden or deactivated. The halo is permanently activated. Natural Bane, in your daily life, you always see other people's bad luck. You even start to think that it's the normal state of the world. But one day, you realize that you are the source of their misfortune. After equipping it, Charm -10, attack power of small animals against you increases by 3 times. God of Plague's aura, for some reason, your pets always die mysteriously, and the people you meet are always unlucky. If someone thinks that everything is going smoothly for them, or if someone thinks that their life can't get any worse, then they definitely haven't met you. Halo effect, hidden attribute luck increases by 10%. Yes, it increases. You are not mistaken. However, as long as there is a possibility of bad luck, even if the probability is only 1%, someone is bound to be unlucky. The lower the luck value, the easier it was to get hit. If no one else was unlucky, then the one who was unlucky would be you. P.S. Halo's effect doesn't work on gunmen or Korean drama heroines. Why? Do you know that auras with the same effect cannot be stacked? In terms of bad luck, their spearman and supporting role doomed tragedy aura is much more powerful than your God of Plague aura. Now do you understand why I increased your luck value? Hurry up and find a few unlucky fellows as lightning rods. What does the system think that you are a jinx and unlucky fellow? I finally understand. That negative effect of reducing charm by 10, with my -88 charm, actually doesn't have much meaning. Anyway, I can already scare people to death with my face. So, scaring a few people to death or scaring dozens to death doesn't make much of a difference. However, this is the first time I know that there is a so-called luck value in this world. Somehow, I feel that even if the system doesn't show it, my luck value is definitely shockingly low. But now, I am a little interested in that God of Plague's aura. A strong person must learn to make use of every factor that can be used, even if the factor seems to be a scam or a prank. Who knows, a precious gem might be hidden in a small pebble by the roadside. The lower the luck value, the easier it is to get hit. Then, let's give it a try. I casually pick up 3 pebbles and choose one of them. With the wind, I throw it with all my might. Just as the first pebble flew halfway, it is blown away by the strong wind. Drawing a beautiful parabola, with a peng, it hits the Roland number 2, which is being repaired, and slides down the body of the big robot. Dang, dang, dang. After a series of bounces, it finally finds its target. Ah, so painful. Who is it? Who is it? Such lack of civility. That pebble happens to hit the head of the centaur Anya, who was hired as a kitchen maid, then slides down. Arth. Anya's soup. Ah. My plate. Don't, that vase is very expensive. Uncle Henry from the kitchen will kill me. The pebble bounces back and forth among the various porcelain. Pa pa pa, dang 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 dang. After Anya frantically tries to save them, all of them break into pieces. Actually, I saw it clearly. If she didn't move, at most, she would have smashed a plate. However, she ran around clumsily in an attempt to grab that pebble, flipping over countless tables along the way. Pa pa pa, all the porcelain and plates are smashed. Did the one with the lowest luck appear? Pitiful child, I hope that your first month's salary is enough for you to compensate. Shaking my head in sympathy, looking at the figure who is trying her best to piece the broken plates back together and the ghastly figure behind her, I decided to help her. That, Diana, go and help Anya. Beifong has his eyes on her and is currently laughing lewdly at the window. Don't let him succeed. Don't give me any face and beat him to death. Don't be afraid of getting beaten to death. Gold rank hunters are very sturdy. Alright, sending the town security team off. At this moment, the one with the lowest luck is without a doubt the unlucky centaur Anya, who lost countless of her jobs because of our arrival. The second one. After hesitating for a moment, I decided to give it a try. This time, even though there is wind, the pebble strangely doesn't move at all. It actually goes straight up and down. Could it be that just as it is about to reach my head, the wind blows? Drifting along with the wind, it just happens to fall on the head of a certain unlucky person. Ah, it hurts. The unlucky Victoria happens to be hit and the pebble falls right into her long hair. The uncomfortable Victoria shakes her head with all her might and the pebble flies out. That is the crisp sound of flesh being lightly knocked against an egg. Something that shouldn't exist ripples under the impact of an external force. Under the surging waves, the shirt that had already collapsed to its limit is finally destroyed and a snow-white rabbit jumps out. At the same time, Crosa's face turns red. This isn't the end yet. Amidst the cries of shock from the surrounding perverts, the pebble flows down and falls into her pants. At that moment, Crosa starts crying anxiously again. Don't move, sister, let me help you take it. Due to their similar fates, Victoria takes the initiative to reach her hand into her pants to search for the pebble. No. However, the current Crosa is already a frightened bird. The unfamiliar sensation on her thighs makes her tremble in fear and she hurriedly grabs the evil hand that is trying to do evil. Finally, the two sisters fight hand to hand, especially Crosa's torn shirt, makes the surrounding pack of wolves extremely agitated and they howl. Alright, I have to clean up my own mistakes, it is too dangerous to continue like this. Will I say that the scene of two super beauties exposing themselves gives me the urge to howl towards the sky? Yoran, bring those bastards who are over-secreting male hormones to the kitchen for cleaning. At a distance, the town security is currently surrounding Beifong, who is attempting to hunt. At the side, Anya apologizes to the head chef Henry while cleaning up the broken pieces. Alright, in reality, she is worried that she will be fired again. Flustered, she continues her urge to destroy the kitchen. Pa, why did it break again? Anya didn't do it on purpose, uncle. Please don't fire me. Anya will do her best to clean it up. Ah, why did it break again? Quickly go. Before that stupid centaur destroys all the utensils, making it impossible for us to eat dinner tonight. Alright, these two pebbles had already stirred up a bloodbath in another sense. Looking at the final pebble in my hand, I shivered. Perhaps, this pebble was even more dangerous than the eternal night scepter that I had painstakingly created. Is the second place Victoria or Crosa? Forget it, it is about time, let's just treat it as a tie for second place. Since I already have 3 lightning rods, as long as they are by my side, I can rest assured about the effects of the halo of plague. No, for something like lightning rods, it is better to have more of them. I made up my mind to continue. This time, in order to not affect the people around me, I cast a swift flight magic on it, allowing it to fly far away. Go, my landmine detector, let's see who will be the next unlucky one. However, the moment the stone flies out, I can no longer see its shadow. It actually floats straight up with the wind. Following which, a roar resounds from the clouds. It is that bastard who randomly threw things at people. Yuan. Yuan alright, it is Little Red's voice. Recently, she was beaten up a few times by someone. She still hasn't gotten back at them after suffering a loss, so her temper is quite bad. Is it Little Red? Isn't her luck always good? Hehe, looks like this toy isn't accurate. As expected, it is you bastard. It is all your fault for causing me to be so unlucky recently. You actually dare to provoke me. Watch my Mount Tai crush. Alright, looking at the expanding black shadow above my head and the angry roar, I revised my judgment. Oh, so I am the third. Yuan, I should at least bring along a lightning rod by my side in the future. Cough. Let's not talk about how I managed to escape by creating chaos. After this incident, I decided to bring along at least one person whose luck is lower than mine. After which, looking at Victoria and Crocer who acted as lightning rods and helped me block quite a few disasters, I felt a little apologetic. In the end, I found a method that can only be described as barely solving the problem. Spring of the Drowned Man. It is a magical spring from an old manga. It can change a woman's body into a unique one. As long as they come into contact with hot water, they will turn into a man. If they come into contact with cold water, they will turn back into a woman. In order to get this treasure from another world, I spent quite a bit of points and a few months of lottery chances before I finally got what I wanted. However, there is only one spring of the Drowned Man. At that time, Colos and Victoria, who have become closer than real sisters, fought for the chance to have an incomplete man. In the end, under the effect of a certain aura of plague, the spring water fell on an unlucky fellow who just happened to pass by. Tragedy. Chapter 53. That day, the sky of Vance City's outskirts isn't peaceful. That is a small market outside of a mining area, and it is also the place where many shady transactions take place. After all, this place is quite far from the city and there is only a dilapidated area of buildings around it. Coming and going would leave traces, making it hard for an ambush to succeed. It is an effective way to avoid being eaten by others. Of course, even so, there is still a mass grave here, specially used to bury those unlucky fellows who thought that they are safe but are still lying here. The residents here are already used to ignoring the sight of the two parties fighting each other. At this moment, another deal didn't come to an agreement and both sides got into a conflict. If one really wants to find something different, it can only be said that the scale of this conflict is higher. The injured ancient red dragon is wailing in pain. The large window on its abdomen is bleeding non-stop and its wings are bound tightly by the black spider silk, unable to spread out at all. I want to eat it, but my father won't allow it. The huge 8-legged spider with weird venom coils around her and the venom keeps numbing her body. Under the dizziness, she is unable to leave the ground. Grim span. If you continue to cower, the agreement will be voided. Our royalty faction will take revenge on you to the end. Or perhaps, you think that your strength is comparable to Adam's and your strategy is comparable to Lionheart's so that you can start a war with us. Do you believe that before we return to Shiluor, the 12 senators will only be left with 10 senators? The roar of the blue crystal bone dragon in mid-air makes the two cowering undead senators firm their resolve. Decaying ant plains. Following the Ant King Ramstein's roar, his soul world is activated and the entire world is replaced. The heavily injured dragon Empress Molly is forcefully pulled into the decaying plains. Gigi. SSS. A weird sound creeps under the plains, making one instinctively feel threatened. After which, one after another, ant nests are opened and brown giant ant soldiers come out from them. Looking at their individual strength, they aren't strong but their endless numbers are what terrifies people the most. The ground of the wasteland had already been hollowed out. Beneath each and every hole was an ancient ant-like alien kingdom. Following the summons of their king, countless soldier ants opened up their own caves. They were the soldiers and servants of the king. However, the will-o'-the-wisps burning in their green eyes indicated that they were also members of the undead army. When Lamost was alive, he was the king of the ancient bug race. When his remains were resurrected into the undead, his kingdom also revived. Although the long passage of time had caused his physical body to decay and his strength to decrease greatly, his countless people were still his pride. The soldier ant warriors raised their strange spears and wooden shields, shouting slogans as they launched a pointless charge. The giant elephant ants that were the size of small mountains were their war beasts. The flying ant sergeants carried acid and poison sack bombs as they began their deadly bombardment. Meanwhile, the queen ants who stood at the very back began to release the dark witchcraft that had been lost in history. The powerful dragon queen fell into the encirclement of the ants. She stomped one to death, but another 10 came. She killed hundreds of flying ants with a single breath of her dragon breath, but another 1,000 came immediately. Those annoying death curses and dark magic were even more fatal and dangerous. None of the undead senators were easy to deal with. Lamost, who was relatively weak in terms of individual strength, possessed an extremely powerful soul world. It was just that this powerful soul world named Desolate Rotten Ant Plains consumed too much of his strength. He didn't dare to use it normally, causing his ranking to be on the low side. Idiot who relies on soul worlds to make a living. If Adam didn't entangle the Dragon Queen, she would still be able to fly. She would risk getting injured to kill you first. Idiot, individual strength is the most important thing. What Grier said was indeed the truth. The undead lords and dragons were a powerful race. Due to their abnormally strong talents, they had instead limited the development of their own path. While their talents were shocking, it usually meant that the level of skills they learned was on the low side. However, to them, when facing weak mortals, just their physical body alone was enough. In fact, in the eyes of a portion of extremists, mortals had to train to reach a level where they could fight against them. This proved that they were powerful and noble. If they needed strength, they just had to fight for it through time and bloodline. Training and learning were unrelated to them. Of course, there were quite a few like Einmesis. Even though she was an ancient red dragon, she had reached a terrifying realm in the 2 major magic domains of fire and air. However, those like Little Red were the minority. They relied on their physical body to make a living, sleep in and wait for time to evolve. These were the most common dragons. There were quite a few dragons who didn't even have their own soul imprint. However, just by relying on their terrifying physical body and basic abilities, basic attributes, it wasn't difficult for them to tear apart a few legend rank warriors. On the side of the undead lords, there were quite a few naturally strong undead lords who did the same. As for Dang, he was a monster who had no realm to speak of. However, even a human semigod had to be careful when facing him. Alright, our Lord Grier wouldn't admit that she was envious of this powerful soul world due to the fact that she didn't have a soul world at all. Especially since this soul world had been praised by a certain person and recognized by the masses. Temph, what soul world that is closest to the realm of an undead emperor? It is just because it is the same type of soul world as an undead emperor, that's why it was looked up to. What's the use of a soul world that can only be maintained for 3 minutes? Look, it has already revealed its true form. The situation of the battle below changed once again. Panting heavily, Lamost was finally unable to maintain his soul world. While this fake world was fading and shattering, the heavily injured Dragon Empress started her counterattack. On the other hand, Grim Span stood in front of Lamost. Being extremely strong in physical combat, he could make up for the Ant King's weakness. In the past, they had always been partners like this. However, this time, looking at the black figure that suddenly descended from the sky, he doesn't have the chance to make a move. Die. Grier dives down and a fatal dragon breath of phosphorus poison descends. The ground turns into a green sea of flames. This kind of poisonous flames is exceptionally vicious. If one were to touch it, it would immediately burn one's bones. Even if it is Molly, when faced with such a dangerous sea of flames, she can only retreat. However, her dodging gave Ardang an opportunity. The spider form that represents restraint warps and transforms into a dark green big-mouthed monster. That deformed giant monster whose entire body is only left with a mouth jumps up with frog-like legs. Opening its bloody mouth that is large enough to swallow a mountain, it actually intends to swallow the Dragon Empress whole. This isn't eating, it's attacking. For the sake of delicacies, Ardang finally gets enlightened. On the verge of death, the Dragon Empress takes one last look at her pair of wings that are still corroded by the spider silk. Twisting her body, she actually retreats a few steps in the air in a bizarre manner. Even so, in the next second, dragon blood and screams of agony fly all over the place. The Dragon Empress has suffered heavy injuries. With that bite from Ardang, 2 of her dragon wings are instantly destroyed. However, the Dragon Empress smiles. This time, I can finally fly. The cruel Dragon Empress actually took the initiative to cut off her wrists and gave her wings to Ardang. After losing the restraining magic on the spider silk, she regains the ability to fly. Although it would be a little difficult without the assistance of her wings, dragons don't just rely on their wings to fly. The remaining magic is used for flying. A formless wind pulls the heavily injured body of the Dragon Empress and pushes her upwards. Sparing no expense, her speed is even faster than her usual top speed. Even without the assistance of her wings, for a red dragon who is the most proficient in flying amongst the dragons, it isn't difficult for her to shake off the bone dragons who are known to be slow and sluggish. Her calculations were excellent, but ouch! Who is so immoral as to force his eyes to fly around? The anxious Dragon Empress Molly accidentally bumps into a dragon that just happened to be passing by. If it is a normal young dragon, within 10 meters, even if he doesn't give way, he would be sent flying by the Dragon Empress. However, the one she bumps into is an ancient red dragon, above 30 meters, of the same rank, flying with your eyes closed, randomly changing paths and driving in the opposite direction. Where did you learn the rules for flying? Aren't you afraid of losing 12 points in one go? Revoking your pilot license. The ancient red dragon, who was babbling nonsense, yawned and glanced down curiously. Oh, isn't this the vicious mother of mine who killed her husband, a son and 3 daughters for the sake of the throne? Why, are you so lonely that you can't sleep and decided to take a stroll at night? Hee, we are all on the same path, why don't we fly together? Molly, whose magic and airflow have been messed up, can only fall straight down like a metal ball. In the end, she realized that the airflow is completely controlled by her opponent and she isn't even able to float in the air. Helpless, she gives up on flapping her wings and falls down like a rock. Below, the undead lords are sharpening their blades, waiting for her. In the end, she can only shout out a sentence helplessly. Ein Messes. You will die a horrible death. Little Red, on the other hand, yawned, turned around and glided, continuing her stroll, only leaving behind a single sentence. Mother, your teachings back then were really right. The howl of a defeated dog is really ugly. Dark clouds press down on the sky of Vance City. As the auction gets closer, the atmosphere of the city becomes more and more tense and stifling. Most of the underground city lords didn't leave with the end of the Alliance conference. The news of the auction that wasn't advertised at all has already spread across the entire city. In their eyes, the show is just beginning. The new and old autarchs are destined to clash in the auction, and this will affect the distribution of power in the underground world. A true god equipment is going to be auctioned, a treasure that involves the royal power of Shiluor is going to be auctioned. The intelligence organizations and thief guilds of the various kingdoms aren't doing nothing. A month's time is more than enough for the news to spread crazily across the surface. Making use of the advantage of being adjacent to the passageway on the surface, the city is already filled with experts from all over the world. At the start, the Beast Kings did try to seal the passageway, but very quickly, they realized that it is a thankless task. The allure of a god equipment is too shocking. Normal beastmen soldiers are meaningless to the experts passing by. If they were to anger the other party, they might even be wiped out directly. After the outpost was cleared more than 10 times, even though the order to seal the passageway was still not removed for the sake of the dignity of the autarchs, in reality, The elite soldiers under the direct command of the lords of the outpost have already been replaced by the old, the sick and the ruffians. Of course, the soldiers who were treated as cannon fodder aren't stupid. They play cards, play mahjong, drinking and everything else in the outpost. Yet, they completely ignore the outsiders who should be stopped in front of them. The so-called order to seal the passageway has become the ears of the blind decoration. Following the countdown of the auction, not to mention the undead and demons, the public enemy of the surface, even the blazing sky oracles and battle angels, the order creatures of the upper plane, can be seen on the streets. The most ridiculous thing is that both sides still maintain a certain level of tacit understanding. They are just glaring at each other angrily without starting a fight. This bizarre situation makes people feel that a storm is brewing. To be honest, looking at this situation, I feel that even if two semigods were to come and bid for the scepter, they might not be able to bring it out. The most pitiful one is probably the alliance between the Beastman Sovereign Show and the Dragon Empress. Obviously, there are people who don't have the patience to wait for the auction and start snatching the scepter. The uninvited guests are getting stronger and more ferocious. When the 1,000-meter-long Mosgil beast descends at high speed from the sky above the city, not to mention the beast men who are charging at it, even I suspect that Vance might be destroyed. Fortunately, the two underground autarchs have mobilized their most elite forces. After paying a huge price, the Manticore Knight and the Red Dragons finally managed to repel the inconceivable gigantic beast that suddenly appeared and disappeared. Just when some people were surprised that the Dragon Empress didn't personally participate in the battle, an even more inconceivable piece of news came: Dragon Empress Molly was ambushed, severely injured and on the verge of death. The Dragon Empress has ruled the underground for thousands of years. Her strength can be ranked in the top 10 of the entire underground world. There are quite a few individual experts among the underground city lords. The autarchs only represent their strength. Furthermore, she is famous for being sly. It is possible for such an expert to escape after being defeated, but it is inconceivable for her to be on the verge of death. Furthermore, if it wasn't for the timely arrival of the Dragon City's reinforcements, the underground Dragon City might have already elected a new Dragon Empress. The culprits are the 5 Shaluor senators. The reason? It is said that the Dragon Empress dared to delay the wages of the migrant workers and was beaten up by the labor contractor who didn't manage to get his wages back. Cough, alright, there are no migrant workers in this world, nor are there labor contractors. The truth is that the Dragon Empress went back on her words after hiring someone to kill them failed. She used the reason that she didn't fulfill her promise to allow the undead lords to touch the scepter, and in the end, the enraged undead lords ganged up on her and beat her up. However, anyone with a discerning eye knows that this is the revenge of Sulphur Mountain City. After all, there are only 3 undead lords who went back on their words, but the ones who retaliated are 5. Furthermore, they ambushed the Dragon Empress with just a few words of disagreement. Furthermore, there are conflicts between these undead lords, so the smell of a conspiracy is too obvious. The one who blocked the sky at the crucial moment, preventing the Dragon Empress from escaping successfully, is Veren's calamity, Ein Mezus, who just happened to pass by. Alright, I admit that it was my plan. Thus, Little Red, who was able to vent her anger, is overjoyed. She has finally avenged the humiliation of being ganged up and beaten up in Sulphur Mountain City. If we only stole a few small things as revenge, wouldn't we be looked down on? You hired the undead senators to attack me, so I hired them to take revenge on you. Such a method of revenge is completely in line with the hypocritical rules of peace in the underground world. Furthermore, it lets the world know that Sulphur Mountain City is not to be looked down on. Without a doubt, the Dragon Empress' personal strength is the strongest support of the Dragon Beast Alliance. When the news of the Dragon Empress being heavily injured was sent back, the already heavily injured Beastman army was in an uproar. The morale of the army, which wasn't shaken even by the attack of the giant beasts, was obviously shaken. It is said that there were even deserters in the camp that night. This is the first time since Sho established the army. It is said that the Lion King is heartbroken. The last time, his hair turned white overnight. Now, even the little bit of lion skin on his chin is completely white. On the intelligence stand of the insiders, the ones who are even more shaken are the arrogant dragons. The Dragon Empress rose to her position by killing her husband. The reason why she is able to rule over 7 dragon cities is due to her personal strength and prestige. Initially, the Black Dragons only treated her as their leader in name. She can only mobilize the young dragons of the Red Dragons. Now that she has been defeated, the young dragons of the Dragon City who are ambitious are already trying to find an opportunity to rise to the top. As for the old ancient dragons, they even suggested to welcome Ein Mezus back. But to me, I am surprised by the sudden visit of an esteemed guest in front of me. Demon Hunter Miniel, the chieftain of the Centaur Beast Men, a famous myth-ranked expert. On the surface, his personal strength is slightly stronger than Sho. Furthermore, it is said that his relationship with Sho isn't very good. The magic archery that he created by combining the skills of his ancestors is famous throughout the entire underground world. Furthermore, he has a grudge against me. Marguerite has been taken care of by you. Miniel, you actually dare to appear in front of me. Do you really think that your strength is enough to do as you please? Aren't you afraid that we will take you down? During the battle outside Sulphur Mountain City, Miniel's magic exploding arrow caused Marguerite's forbidden spell Ice Eon to explode prematurely. Furthermore, it caused 3 precious Philosopher's Stones to be destroyed. Repairing them would require an astronomical amount of gold coins. Every time Marguerite mentions this centaur, she would grit her teeth in anger. He is a size smaller than a normal centaur. Other than the bronze breastplate on his body, he doesn't have any other defensive equipment. The gigantic longbow on his back is extremely eye-catching. If one were to look at his outer appearance, this gentle bearded duke has the air of a scholar. At this moment, facing my hostile provocation, the old centaur smiles. I'm really sorry about that time. I was negotiating with Sho then, and coincidentally, I was brought to Sulphur Mountain as well. If it wasn't for the fact that the forbidden spell is too terrifying and I would have been dragged into it, I wouldn't have made a move. After that, I didn't lay my hands on Lord Saint, so that should prove my sincerity. Even though it is an arrogant and confident declaration, I instinctively think that he is speaking the truth. After all, while sighing that the centaur chieftain of the anti-beast emperor faction actually sided with Sho, Marguerite was also curious as to why she didn't encounter Miniel's magic-penetrating mother-child arrow. This also proves that he is speaking the truth. The entire underground world knows that we aren't the same kind of people as those barbaric beasts who eat raw meat and drink blood. On the other hand, I am happy to see the loss of Sho and his butchers. If I wasn't forced to make a move, I'm afraid that my gift and letter of thanks would have already been sent to your residence. I have indeed heard of this before. The Centaur, Tauren, and other herbivorous alliance have a bad relationship with the current beast emperor scorpion-tailed lion Sho and his close tribe. On one side, they scold him as barbaric beasts who eat raw meat, while on the other side, they scold him as hoofed livestock who eat grass. Then, what are you here for? I thought that he would spout a bunch of nonsense like the enemy of my enemy is my friend before forming a secret alliance with us like the other underground city lords. However, old Miniel smiles bitterly and shakes his head. Wu Mianzi, at this stage, why are you still acting dumb? Just say it. What are your conditions? Can you let me meet my great niece first? What? This tone, this feeling, it is as though an old rich merchant who had his grandson kidnapped, finally coming to terms with the kidnappers helplessly. Don't be silly, I admit defeat. I just don't know how you know that Anya is my only kin, the candidate to become the next chieftain of the Centaur tribe. You have obviously hidden it well for so many years. If you have any conditions, just say it. Don't go overboard, otherwise, the arrows in our hands won't be easy to deal with. What? This time, I was really shocked. That number 1 unlucky lightning rod, that talkative silly lass, is actually the candidate to become the next chieftain of the Centaur tribe. If she really becomes the chieftain, wouldn't the entire Centaur tribe be finished? You guys don't know? The intuition of an expert allowed Miniel to realize that I wasn't intentionally acting dumb. I really don't know. Who would treat that silly lass as an important figure? After the shock subsided, I shook my head with a smile. But now I know. Miniel immediately regretted it deeply. This time, he would have to pay a heavy price for his carelessness. You want to meet her, no problem. However, my decisiveness in letting her go shocked him. It isn't that I don't want to take this opportunity to extort some money, but you better bring her away quickly. At least, before all of our plates are destroyed. Many of us used cups to eat dinner yesterday. Also, do you accept compensation bills here? Looking at the speed of her destruction, if you were to pick her up late, I think you better prepare more cash. These few days, we finally understood why Anya kept getting fired. It's fine if she is clumsy, a hard-working silly lass is also very cute. However, accidents can happen everywhere when one's luck is bad. The glass shatters when cleaning the glass. The table collapses when moving it. Even when cleaning the floor would collapse. It is really unbearable. Even though what she did was infuriating, looking at her tearful and sincere apology, coupled with the fact that her bad luck was unintentional, no one really hardened their heart to criticize her. Hurry up and bring her away. Did you see the pile of documents on the table? They are all her damage reports. Remember to bring the bills with you when you leave. Menial, who doesn't know whether to laugh or cry, nods his head, but, I'm not going back. What is surprising is that Anya directly refuses to go home. Why? Could it be that those bastards at home aren't treating you well? Don't worry, second granduncle will stand up for you. Shocked by his niece's rejection, the dumbfounded Menial says hurriedly. No, my brothers are treating Anya very well. It's just that Anya doesn't want to stay in the calm grassland anymore. Why? Could it be that someone is fighting with you for the right to inherit the position of chief? Don't worry, as long as I am alive, you will be the first successor. That's not it either. It isn't for such a boring reason. Then, whoever wants to be the chief can go ahead. Anya just doesn't want to stay in the countryside for her entire life. Anya's goal is to become a rich missy in the city. Second granduncle, look, other than grass and livestock, there's nothing else in the grassland. There's no good food, no beauty products, no high-rise streets, no entertainment facilities, no. Omitting over 300 items. Anya has had enough of the days where I have to go to the toilet in the grassland. Anya's goal is to become a rich missy in the city. Although it wasn't smooth at the start, now that I am finally on the right track, I don't want to go back. I want to go back to those days where I have to sleep at night and there isn't even a light at night. The little centaur speaks faster and faster, laughing as he speaks. On the other hand, the old centaur's face turns uglier and uglier. Recently, there are quite a number of youngsters who leave the tribe for the luxurious life in the city. However, he never expected that his precious niece, who he had high hopes for, would do the same. The brothers and sisters here are really nice to me. Even if Anya accidentally makes a mistake, they would never reprimand me. They aren't like the other bosses who fire me for no reason. I want to start from here and establish myself in the big city. First, I will save my salary and buy a small house. Then, with a bit of hard work, one day, I will become a true tycoon. Enough. I have spoiled you too much. You aren't fit to be the descendant of the great centaur hero Mungo. To think that you would so casually give up the tradition of the golden bloodline of the centaurs. You are obviously of the noble bloodline of the grassland eagle, but for the weak life of a coward in the city, you are willing to become a pig waiting to be slaughtered. You are really the shame of the centaurs. Follow me back, I want to train you well. Old Menial pulls the struggling Anya and walks away. If it was a few minutes ago, I would definitely be happy to see this happen. But now, hearing the declaration of this youngster, I somehow think of a thief lass who also came from the countryside. She might have made a similar wish. I want to dig up the treasure and become the richest man in the world, living the life of a rich girl. Perhaps, other than their goals, the two of them are totally different. At the very least, Lisa did make a fortune in the end, while I can't see the possibility of Anya's goal being realized. But somehow, I want to help this lass. Thus, I stopped the two of them. Centaur Chief, perhaps, we can talk about interesting things. For example, the Beastman Sovereign or the Demon's Blood. For example, the current Beastman Sovereign has been corrupted by the demon. Perhaps, it is time for the Centaur tribe to rise up. Look, if Vance City is your territory in the future, perhaps, the youngsters in your tribe wouldn't always think about leaving the tribe. Chapter 54. The negotiation with old Miniel didn't go smoothly. Of course, it isn't because of the request to form an alliance. In this aspect, since there is a common enemy in front of us, forming an alliance is a matter of course. This isn't because the old lion is a bad person. In fact, his reputation among the beast men is quite good. However, a tall tree attracts the wind. The position of the beastmen lord is very alluring. There are many people eyeing the throne of the underground autarch. As long as they reveal a flaw, countless underground city lords would attempt to take over. The minial in front of me is obviously at odds with the old lion. His tribe has been fighting with Shou's tribe for a few hundred years. If the old lion were to reveal a flaw, he would be the first to impeach the old lion. After all, based on the current situation of the underground world, there should be a beastman among the autarchs, but that beastman might not necessarily be Shou. Old Miniel's original intention was to talk about an alliance. Since they had feelings for each other, they naturally hit it off. Gan Cai Liehua, many agreements against a certain lion were quickly settled. However, the casual conversation regarding Anya's future had fallen into a deadlock right from the start. Obviously, to those stubborn old men who are determined to let their granddaughter inherit the family business, the younger generation will have their own fortune and the younger generation will have their own world are meaningless. In their minds, tradition and the foundation of their ancestors are more important than anything else. For the benefit of the family, they are even willing to sacrifice themselves, needless to say, sacrificing the freedom of a youngster. Furthermore, in their eyes, this decision for you is probably for your own good. Since logic doesn't work, I will just lie. I first complained about how the old man's way of teaching is too old-fashioned, resulting in the youngsters being unable to control them. Then, I used Anya and Anne to make a comparison. Look, both of them are the future successors of a city, high hopes are placed on them. Our Sulphur Mountain cities and is already at the pinnacle of gold rank, ready to break through to legend at any moment. She isn't even 20 yet. Even in the entire world, she can already be considered a genius. What about your Anya? I don't think she has even reached silver rank. This is just strength. What is more important as a city lord is experience and qualifications. Look, our and is already starting to take over as the acting city lord. This time, she is even the ambassador of the diplomatic group. Our and is already standing alone in the alliance conference. What about your Anya? Do you know how we nurture him? Lions will take the initiative to kick their cubs off a cliff. And went out to wander the world by herself at the age of 12 to broaden her horizons. That's why she has today's achievements. You've trapped your children in an empty prairie. How are you going to give them the opportunity to travel and broaden their horizons? How are they going to compete with powerful enemies to strengthen themselves? In your words, are they going to be eagles soaring in a storm or fledglings shivering in the shade of trees? Even I believed her words, but they were obviously half-truths. Anne's personal power level was so high mainly due to her unique inheritance. As for the experience she gained from traveling, hey, I did hear her talk about her travels. It's uncomfortable to be hungry at night, but no matter how hungry I am, I can't casually walk with strangers. It's uncomfortable to be drenched in the rain, but my body warms up after running, followed by no matter how hungry I am, I can't casually pick up things on the ground to eat. Poisonous animals can be eaten after removing their heads and poison sacs, but the more colorful the plants, the more poisonous they are, so I can't eat them at all. If I really get lost in the mountains for too long, I can just randomly choose a direction to walk through and dig my way out. However, being buried alive is too uncomfortable, so I have to be careful. Back then, my reaction was what the heck, as expected of Adam's adopted daughter and disciple. She really is the same type of person, and she really learned it well. She didn't die even after that. Her life is really tough. Cough, I went off topic again. At this moment, after a while of bluffing, all kinds of half-truths and half-lies came out of my mouth. There were many historical examples of countries being destroyed due to the leader's stupidity, causing the centaur to be in a daze. Look, Prince Grim of Iron City also came to Vance alone at such a young age. I have seen that person before. Even though he is young, you really can't underestimate him in all aspects. In the future, it will be the era of the young. Do you intend to let your Anya lose at the starting line? Miniel, who was already dumbfounded by my words, looks at me in a daze. Then, if I leave Anya here with you, will I be able to groom a qualified leader? Of course not. The reason why I said so much isn't to bring this unlucky fellow to my side and find trouble for myself. As long as you let her out as you wish, it will be enough. As for what happens after that, I don't want to bother about it, nor can I bother about it. I am a typical person who thinks that the process isn't important and only the results are important. As long as the results are good, I don't really care about the process. Since I have already bluffed to such an extent, naturally, I will continue to bluff him to the end. Of course, it's not. But suddenly, someone interrupts my bluff to get rid of my responsibility. Of course you can. Lord Wumianzi is the best at teaching people, even Big Sister Marguerite praised him. He will definitely teach Anya well. Suddenly, Anne walks in from outside the door and agrees to it immediately. Furthermore, her eyes are sparkling when she looks at me. I didn't expect that Gu. Lord Wumianzi would always look at me like this. I thought that Anne made you unhappy. Looks like Anne is even more motivated now. Miniel carefully assesses this city lord-in-waiting who was praised to the skies, and to his surprise, he realized that I wasn't lying. It is already ridiculous for a human to reach the boundary of a legend before the age of 20. That phoenix flame that fills her body means that her future is limitless. After she breaks through, she might not become a normal legend. To a wily old fox like him, he already knows that in the underground world where the weak are prey to the strong, strength is the most fundamental. Anne's extraordinary strength is the best proof and also the last straw that breaks the camel's back. All right. I will hand Anya over to you. She will be the strongest guarantee of our alliance. We centaurs have always kept our promises. If you are able to fulfill the requirements of the agreement, we will be your eternal ally. The right hand of the old centaur that is hanging in the air is grabbed by Anne. In the ancient beastman customs, this is the sign of an agreement being reached. Yes. Not only Lord Wumianzi, I will also exchange experiences with Anya and work hard together. Our two races will then become true friends. Then, she turns her head around. Uncle Bones, I did well, right? Don't I look like a real city lord now? Even though she didn't say it out loud, from the gleeful gaze that Anne is looking at me, I can already understand what she is trying to express. Exchange experiences, exchanging ideas on how to scam others and how to be a naughty child. Luckily, the mask is unable to reveal my emotions, otherwise, my face would definitely be filled with bitterness. No matter what, and is the head of the diplomatic group in name. Now that we have formed an alliance with another race, how can I still reject it? After which, I still have to follow the requirements of the agreement and turn that unlucky fellow into a qualified city lord. It seems like an impossible task. Perhaps, I can only try necromancy magic to brainwash him. However, the centaurs of the plains are indeed famous for keeping their promises. If they could gain a truly reliable ally because of this, it would be a good thing for Sulphur Mountain City. The only unlucky one would be me, the one who would be in trouble. Did I shoot myself in the foot again? It is really hard to be a good person these days. Right, why didn't that unlucky fellow act as a lightning rod? Perhaps, we can make some use of this aspect. Glancing at the delighted Anya, I turn my head and say to Miniel. It seems like Anya's luck is really bad. If an accident were to happen, not waiting for me to finish my words, Miniel shakes his head. This is the symbol of the royal gold bloodline of our race. While obtaining the power hidden in the bloodline, it also brings about a curse of misfortune. However, I have a treasure that brings luck. If Anya stays, I will pass it to her. There should be an obvious improvement. A treasure that brings luck. Just thinking about it makes me feel incredulous. All right, I admit that I am tempted. If I have this, perhaps my luck will improve and my affinity with women will improve. All right, leave your granddaughter to me. Oh, that's great, Lord Wumianzi. Although everyone says that you are gay and a little scary, I didn't expect you to be such a good person. Hearing that she doesn't have to return to the plains, Anya is already jumping around in joy. On the other hand, I, who received the good person card, flew into a rage. Who said that? I want to send him to Sulphur Mountain Range to dig for sulphur. On the other side, Miniel nods his head. That satisfied smile on his face is basically saying, great, she is safe now that she is gay. Although she is a centaur, there are too many perverts in this era. What safe? There is Beifong here. Alright, it is better to keep the criticism to myself. It is better not to air our family's dirty linen. The more I explain, the messier it will get. Do I still have to explain my sexual orientation to his face? I shake my head helplessly. Looks like the day of dispelling the rumors is still far away. I can only hope that the old centaur doesn't like to gossip. Old Miniel expresses that he will come over to teach Anya the archery that is passed down in the family in a few days' time before leaving. Then, I ask. That treasure? Oh, the lucky horseshoe. Wait a moment, I will take it down. I am a little excited. The legend of horseshoes being able to bring luck has been around for a long time. So it is actually a treasure of the royal family of the Centaur Gold bloodline. To be able to encounter such a rare treasure, could it be that my luck has changed? Very quickly, the old centaur takes off 2 horseshoes and passes it to Anya. Lucky horseshoe epic grade equipment. Equipment effect greatly increases the user's luck. Oh, it is actually a top grade item. You want to obtain luck? Remember to find a blacksmith to nail it first. Looking at this, I am dumbfounded. This is a piece of equipment. You know that equipment must be equipped for it to be useful. Do you have hooves? Congratulations, you are working for free again. Actually, you could have stopped struggling a long time ago. Your luck is already hopeless, just give up. No wonder old Miniel didn't hesitate to gift this horseshoe that was comparable to a divine artifact to Anya. Although the horseshoe didn't have any usage requirements, others could only look at it. If you want to equip this thing, you must first nail it onto your own hoof. Alright, looking at this centaur running around happily while being teased by the system. As expected, I am getting more and more unlucky recently. Recently, unlucky things keep happening. Perhaps, the best news that I have heard these few days is the awakening of Eliza. When the towering pillar of flames and the quietly flowing river of ice appeared at the same time, even I, who is experienced in this aspect, was shocked. Turning 2 conflicting elemental powers into the cornerstone of a soul imprint, this is a completely unwise act. What is inconceivable is that not only did it succeed, it even surpassed the level of elemental specialization and rose to the level of basic laws and concepts. This is naturally a good thing, but the concept itself makes one think too much. Steel. Why does it feel like a soul imprint of the Chaos faction? Looks like it is still influenced by the demon's blood. The power that a soul imprint represents is usually related to the life experience of the person and the nature of the person's power. The experts of the Order faction tend to strengthen, control and stabilize a certain aspect of the laws. Most of the time, it manifests itself in the form of buffs. For example, Shueti's Heart of Steel makes his body as hard as steel, Adam's Undying Phoenix allows him to never fall, even my Seal of Justice and Marguerite's Corridor of Time strengthen the effects of certain spells. On the other hand, the Chaos faction is slightly different. It tends to distort and destroy the existing laws, making it more offensive. The law of plague itself is the destruction of the law of health, the law of elemental control is the destruction of the natural cycle of the elements, the law of undead is the destruction of the laws of life and death, and Eliza's plunderer is the destruction of the concepts of existence and possession. It is normal if it appears on a demon or undead, but for it to appear on Eliza, who is the enforcer, I don't know whether it is a good thing or not. However, it feels like this law is still very strong, similar to our Dang. As long as you are interested in a power and your body is able to withstand it, you can steal it. As long as it accumulates to a certain extent, it will definitely become extremely strong. However, if you were to casually use steel, it would cause your own attributes to be too mixed up, which might not be a good thing. Thus, I also requested Eliza not to casually use this power and she agreed immediately. But somehow, I felt that something was amiss. The advancement allowed her body to recover quickly. On the second day after she woke up, she took the initiative to request to return to the team. Looking at the terrifying amount of work she had accumulated and the mountain of letters that Sulphur Mountain City sent over, I did a few simple tests on her, and after confirming that her condition was inconceivably good, I approved it. Just like before, she calmly and efficiently carried out her duties as my assistant and the head of intelligence. But there is no change at all. This is what is most amiss. That calm expression of hers makes me feel that she is plotting something. Perhaps I have really been tricked so much that I have developed a persecutory delusion, but there is some basis to this guess. A soul imprint is the crystallization of one's past life and power. After it is formed, not only would it affect one's power, it would also affect one's personality subtly. Adam obtained the indomitable undying phoenix, making him even more stubborn and strong. My seal of justice allowed me to act according to the balance of my heart, drifting to the boundaries of the law. Marguerite's corridor of time allowed her to wander in history, becoming an observer of history and reality instead of a participant. Shueti's heart of steel is an obvious example of a mistake. This is still the relatively mild order faction. The changes in the experts of the Chaos faction should be even greater after they form their soul imprint. I have already predicted that there would be changes in Eliza and there would definitely be changes in her. However, the changes didn't appear even after a long time. It is as though a heavy stone is hanging above my head. There is bound to be a moment when it falls, but it isn't willing to fall, making me feel uneasy. But very quickly, I don't have the energy to be distracted anymore. The auction is right in front of us, and a vicious battle has been destined to happen since a month ago, when the Eternal Night Scepter was brought to this city. Chapter 55. The glorious Platinum City that carries a long history, at this moment, is no longer as prosperous as it was in the past. Endless flames spread along the streets filled with history. The sea of fire that covers the sky swallows everything. In front of the destroyers who have lost their rationality, those precious historical sites that are filled with traces of history aren't worth mentioning. In the sky, the giant dragons and the magical beasts are fighting. The white-winged angels are in a killing frenzy. They are like butchers, slaying all the evil in front of them, even if he was still a commoner just a moment ago. Dead, they are all dead. High Priestess Kaja was assassinated. The Dark Elves have gone mad. They are killing anyone they see. Why would there be gold dragons and angels in the underground world? Are the Order gods trying to destroy us? Or is the army on the ground already attacking us? The Beastman army has entered the city. They are fighting with the Dark Elves. This is no longer the peaceful Vance of yesterday. Countless beacons are lit one by one, and the 1,000-year-old ancient city is about to be destroyed. This also starts from the auction that is destined to be unable to end. For in the morning, the auction that was originally planned to be held in the Platinum Chapel was changed at the last minute. There was no other reason. The chapel that could hold 10,000 people was too small. It couldn't hold the number of people participating in the auction. Due to the requirement of my contract of anyone can participate in the auction, the chapel was already packed to the brim even before 3 a.m. Left with no choice, I could only change the auction venue. Considering that the new location has to be spacious, I directly used the original location of the auction. That place is already a bottomless pit with no end in sight. It is definitely spacious enough. This auction is destined to not end peacefully. The Alliance Conference has already ended, and the binding agreement of not fighting during the Alliance Conference is already invalid. That agreement that prohibits fighting in the neutral Vance city? Sorry, if it wasn't for the balance of power, this city would already be within the boundaries of the battle. In reality, everyone knows that no matter who auctions that god equipment, it will be snatched away on the spot. Without the strength to suppress the entire crowd, it is impossible to bring it away. But humans are greedy, and everyone more or less has the mentality of wishful thinking. Isn't that how the legendary knight novels are written? Perhaps, a god equipment will suddenly appear in front of me in the middle of a fight. Not long after, I'll be able to discover the secrets within and become an undead emperor. I'll become the emperor of the Shiluor Empire, marry a beautiful, rich, and beautiful woman, and reach the pinnacle of my life. Just thinking about it makes me a little excited. This kind of thought spun in everyone's mind, and there were also many who felt that they were strong enough and had amazing luck, so they couldn't resist the temptation to take advantage of the situation. It was said that when the auction started that day, the entire square was blocked to the point where not even a drop of water could trickle through. Although the first few items were rare treasures, no one paid attention to them. In fact, under the watchful eyes of tens of thousands of experts, no one dared to make a bid. Why is it said that? It would be foolish of me to step into a pit that I had dug. Not only did I not go there myself, I even strictly ordered all of my subordinates to go to the scene. At the same time, I raised the alert level of the camp and activated all equipment that could increase the camp's defense. Everyone wore their armor and rested, ready for battle at any moment. Why? Thinking too much? Actually, it wasn't superfluous at all. Under normal circumstances, a city could only have one master. Only then would the citizens and the army know where they belonged. However, in this city, there were at least 4 cores. Although they were all cities with many different species, the most foundational difference from Sulphur Mountain City was that here, the various species didn't understand each other and work hard to coexist under the same laws and decrees. Here, dark elves were dark elves, beastmen were beastmen, and humans were humans. Their living habits and even their residences were completely different. The orders of the various rulers were naturally limited to their own areas. If someone went to another area at night and got gang raped or killed, in their eyes, it would be completely normal and self-inflicted. This isn't right, it's really wrong. Excessive isolation made living together completely meaningless. Due to the competition for survival resources, as well as the widespread racial prejudice and all sorts of misunderstandings and rumors, the conflicts between the various species only deepened. The moment I arrived in this city, I discovered that something was wrong. A legendary city with 10,000 years of history? It sounds incredible, but if we were to continue living in isolation and friction, wouldn't it be equivalent to 10,000 years of accumulated grudges? The countless conflicts and even destruction of this city in history proved my inference. This city's system and structure was destined to go through the cycle of accumulating conflicts, exploding conflicts, and rebuilding. And now, with the gathering of the 4 great lords, there were already enough conflicts accumulated in the alliance treaty. All that was left was a powerful fuse to light the fuse. And, I just had to present the eternal night scepter at this moment. Alright, I also felt that I was courting death. But, I didn't expect that under the glamour of this city, there would be such a scene. If this was the trigger, then when the flames of war really started, the hidden spectator spies would direct the fuse to me. Then, the reason for the rise of war would be even more helpless. The moment the auction ended, the fool who paid 10,000 gold was split into 13 pieces and everyone got into a brawl. At that time, a seraph threw his sword but it was blocked by a Tauren weapon master. The blazing god sword actually rebounded towards the dark elf matriarch, scaring the matriarch silly. That matriarch died. But it shouldn't have ended up like this. Did they start an all-out war just like that? Karja is making too much of a fuss. No, the one who died wasn't that Morspite city's matriarch Lucina Sifan. She directly pulled someone beside her to take the blame, acting as a human shield. At that time, it was a mess and the matriarchs were all slow to react priests. In the end, she really succeeded. Phut, that fellow is so unlucky. Karja as high priestess, her heart was pierced through and she couldn't be any more dead. She instantly returned to the embrace of Rose. If I were to take off my mask, my face would definitely be one of embarrassment. The highest leader of the Dark Elves in name, the illegitimate daughter of Rose, died just like that. Why did he die so mysteriously? Impossible, I have already warned her not to go to the scene. My astonished voice stopped halfway. Although I did warn my allies about the dangers of the auction, it would be inconceivable if they listened to my advice obediently. How could this be? Such bad luck. Could it be that she also had the fate of a spearman? My muttering was treated as a question by the elf spy in front of me. She nodded her head. My lord, please understand. In order to ensure safety in the chaos, Karja took out the semigod equipment passed down by Rose, the spear of the 9-headed snake. However, the god of misfortune doesn't treat others differently because of their position. The powerful high priestess actually suffered such misfortune. Then, That spear was recognized by others and many people started to fight over it. Thus, there were quite a few who lost their lives. I was dumbfounded. This is too direct and effective. I expected chaos, but Kajura's sudden death caused this chaos to turn into a large-scale war. An underground autarch suddenly died. Furthermore, she is the illegitimate daughter and high priestess of Rose whom the Dark Elves believe in. Based on the habits of the Dark Elves and Rose's bad habits, if there isn't enough fresh blood as a sacrifice, Rose will vent her anger on everyone. Those Dark Elf matriarchs don't have the benevolence to wait for the gods' punishment without sacrificing others. Thinking about this, I couldn't help but shiver. Dark Elves are one of the main races in the underground world. There are at least hundreds of thousands of Vance Dark Elves. If all of them start to go crazy, perhaps, after the calamity, Vance wouldn't even need to be rebuilt. My lord. UN. Is there anything else? It's like this. Lucina Siphon caused Kajura's death. Back then, Rose cast a curse and all of the female Siphon priests turned into spider elves. The position of the first family in Morseblight City is on the verge of collapse and they are weak both internally and externally. You are talking about Victoria Siphon? Suddenly, Eliza walks out from the back. Yes, Master. Victoria has made a request to me. She should be the only Rose priest of the first family in Morseblight City, the Siphon family, who still maintains her elf form. Based on the traditions of the Dark Elves and Rose's rules, she should be able to be promoted to matriarch immediately. Thus, Victoria hopes to obtain the support of Sulphur Mountain City to take control of the entire Morseblight City. Of course, she also made many promises and those conditions are indeed very attractive. Master, what do you mean? Based on Eliza's idea, as long as we pay a certain amount of military support, we would be able to obtain a city near Sulphur Mountain City. I have no reason to reject her, but at this moment, I fell into deep thought. I am really hesitating. What is making me hesitate isn't the matter in front of me. Kaja is dead and Victoria is starting to rise. Is this also the trajectory of history? Could it be that the rise of the Dark Elf Empress is unstoppable? Is this also the so-called inertia of history? Could it be that the wings of this butterfly are going to be corrected by history? Could it be that all my hard work is destined to be in vain? If everything returns back to the starting point, then what is the point of my arrangements? In an instant, a sense of exhaustion from the depths of my soul surges up, making me feel like all my hopes are in tatters and I don't want to do anything at all. Lord! But a concerned greeting jolts me back to my senses. It is rare for Eliza to reveal a worried expression. After knowing her for so long, this is the first time she has seen her master, who is always full of energy, reveal such a tired look. Danger, danger. Don't undead rely on their obsession to stay in this world? My greatest obsession is to change my King fate. This state is too dangerous. If I were to ascend to the heavens just like that, it would be too hilarious. I shake my head and dispel these distracting thoughts. I know that I have accidentally walked into a dead end again. I am just thinking too much. History has already been changed. No matter what, it is already too late for the Victoria to start now. Her personality is also much gentler than the Empress in history. Personality determines fate. She is destined to be a different person from the Victoria in history. Even with my support, it is basically impossible for her to control the entire Dark Elves 10 years ago. Perhaps, it is just fate that Victoria will not be ordinary. Since that is the case, an elf matriarch who is close to Sulphur Mountain City and a Dark Elf Empress who might reconcile with the surface is a good thing no matter what. Thus, I nod my head. Promise her to send a few people to take over the power left behind by the Siphon matriarch. Just try to take over as much as possible and if there is any danger, return immediately. After this matter is settled for a while, send someone to help her return to Morseblight City to seize power. Right, pass this note to her. Thus, I write furiously and pass it to Eliza. This isn't some secret plan but a double insurance against a unique target. Actually, there are some things that are hard to say and I shouldn't be saying them. But since we are about to part, if you don't say it out loud, I will worry about your future. You were turned into a female by the god's punishment and you are a priest. You should know that the god's punishment represents the will of the true God. If the one being punished were to release the god's punishment, wouldn't that be equivalent to slapping the face of the true God? You should know that Rose has never been a magnanimous god. There is no point in saying more, please behave yourself. Everyone knows that Victoria is eyeing Edwina's belt covetously. Even if Victoria's character isn't bad, the terrible reputation of dark elves and rose priests makes it impossible to be wary of them, even if that dark elf is still underage. Thus, out of consideration for Croce's safety, it is better to make an insurance. This way, in fear of the true god's wrath, Victoria should try her best to suppress the desire in her heart. Of course, things aren't so coincidental that I can get whatever I want. Every sentence on this note is true, but when put together, it is a huge lie. The god's punishment is indeed related to the face of a true god. If the god of justice were to release the god's punishment on an evil person, a lightning of judgment might strike down. However, Rose's situation is really unique. Other true gods are extremely cautious about the god's punishment, afraid that they might accidentally kill an innocent person. On the other hand, Rose often performs miracles in the Dark Elf City. Her incarnation has descended quite a number of times and the frequency of the god's punishment is very high. It is just like a summer thunderstorm, coming from time to time. After it comes, the sky will clear up and everything will return to normal. Someone receiving the god's punishment isn't news among the Dark Elves. Based on Rose's busy frequency of performing miracles, she might have already forgotten how many people she has punished. Personally, I think that even if the god's punishment is really released, she might not even know about it. So it is true that the god's wrath is released when the god's punishment is released. It is also true that Rose isn't a magnanimous god. However, I forgot to add in the sentence Rose's situation is unique and it becomes a big lie. This is a language trick that I learned from the swindler in the underground prison. I don't think that Victoria is able to see through it. To a priest, the will of a god is like the heavens. Although it doesn't seem to be far away and you can see it as long as you raise your head, in reality, it is impossible to get close to it. She should know the meaning of the god's punishment to the gods. As for what will happen after releasing the god's punishment, any true god's teachings won't teach you how to release the god's punishment, nor will they tell you what will happen after releasing the god's punishment. That would be no different from a blasphemer. Alright, this is also for her own good. To her, to him who is intending to return to the Dark Elves, this is definitely a good thing. After all, the male Dark Elves are no different from slaves to them. Ayo, so that they won't fight and kill each other and have a good ending, isn't it easy for me as a superior? Can I give myself an award, the 10 best superiors who touched Sulphur Mountain City? Not long after Eliza leaves, the cheers of women and the sighs of dejection of men can be heard from outside the window. Then, I took the opportunity to decide on the topic for next week's discussion on the necessity of normalcy orientation for social development. While the outside world is in chaos, I am busy at my desk. Countless reports pass through Eliza's hands and in the end, it is up to me to make the final decision. The Dark Elves who lost Rose's daughter have gone mad. They desperately hope for more souls and fresh blood to help them escape from the god's punishment. It is impossible to expect them to remember the alliance. The Dragon Empress and the Lion Emperor won't let us off. The chaos will eventually spread to the entire city. Let everyone prepare themselves. For the position of the Autarch for the next 10 years, not only must we win this battle, we must win it beautifully. When I gave the final decision of the final battle, I nodded my head towards the secret weapon in the room and told him to prepare for the fight. When I stood up to prepare, I suddenly thought of a treasure that I had neglected. Right, what happened to Kajura's corpse? Yes, that treasure is Kajura's body. To a necromancer, the body of a strong is the best material. As the daughter of Rose, Kajura's body has the blood of a true god flowing through it, making it a treasure among treasures. If I can obtain this body of a semigod, different from the realm of a semigod, I am confident that I can create an undead lord who isn't inferior to any of the original sins. But, the scout by the side shakes his head. The corpse is gone. Those dark elves are searching frantically, but they didn't leave any traces behind. It is as if the corpse walked out on its own. The corpse walked out on its own? Nonsense. Wait a moment. It might really be possible. Isn't what I want to do now to make the corpse walk on its own? Currently, there is more than one undead lord in Vance. If it was any other lower-ranked undead senator, it would only be a waste of this rare semigod body. However, there is an undead senator who hasn't appeared in Vance for the past few days. Furthermore, she has been hoping to obtain a perfect elf body. The third senator, Queen of Banshees Harlois, this is really troublesome. The ranking of the undead senators is based on their strength, but the top 3 and the bottom are two different things. There are even people who say that the bottom is just to make up the numbers so that the top 3 don't seem so special. The reason why Emperor Yongye's subordinate, Gria, is able to reach the 4th position but it is impossible for her to advance any further is because the top 3 were once Emperor Yongye's partners. Their relationship with the Emperor is cooperation and not as subordinates. Just this point alone is enough to prove that these 3 undead lords are extraordinary. From the history of undead lords, they are even the seniors of the Emperor. Among them, the Queen of Banshees Harlois, who is ranked 3rd, was once the princess of the ancient elf empire. That isn't the kingdom of the elves which was split into smaller countries in the future. Instead, it is the queen of the ancient elf empire who ruled over 70% of the continent during the elf era. She is also known as the all-knowing one to praise her omnipotence in the field of magic. She feels a little wronged being ranked 3rd. The main reason is that the body she used previously was destroyed in the Battle of Yongye and she wasn't willing to randomly find a normal body, which resulted in her being ranked 3rd. If she really managed to obtain Kajura's body, this ranking would probably have to be redone. Yes, half a month ago, there were quite a number of people who reported hearing the ancient elf's epic song Twilight of the Gods. However, no one was able to find the singer. This is basically her symbol, which is why some people guessed that the Queen of Banshees has already arrived here. That is why even though there are 6 undead senators here, only 5 of them have appeared. Yeah, if it is her, it would really be troublesome. She isn't easy to deal with at all. My muttering received the nod of approval from the elf observer in front of me. Yes, she is indeed famous for her intelligence, strength, and charm. Wait, how do you know that the song is called Twilight of the Gods? That should be the ancient elf language. There aren't many people in the entire Aishi who can understand it. My astonished question made the elf secret agent in front of me smile. She slowly takes off the mask on her face. That is a familiar face, so familiar that I just met her 2 days ago. The high elf's white skin starts to turn dark and her red hair starts to turn into the unique silver-white color of the dark elves. That beautiful face that belongs to Kaja becomes more mature and confident than before. That pair of willowy eyebrows slightly raise and her face is filled with the pride and confidence unique to elves. She looks as though she is a queen who has everything and has the natural ability to look down on everything. Yo, long time no see. Little Yongye, how have you been recently? Chapter 56. Looking at the elf in front of me, I instantly understood why the highest priestess of Spider Queen Rose would die from an accidental injury and why Harlois didn't appear even though she had already reached Vance. Looks like she had her eyes on Kajura's physical body the moment she arrived, and there is a 99% chance that Kajura's so-called accidental death was caused by her own hands. Ayo, you aren't even greeting your teacher? Yes, from a certain perspective, the one in front of me is my necromancy and ice magic teacher. Of course, she had a motive for imparting them to me from the very start. The senators are actually the warlords of the Shiluor Empire. The royal faction tried their best to snatch the 4th seat for Gria, but no one thinks that the 3rd senator is just a step away from the 4th senator. The 2nd senator, Feyman, is an extremely ancient Lich king with countless Liches under him. The Dark Knight Council formed by the Liches under him is the #1 power in the Shiluor Empire. In the history, he was the one who led the Undead Wizard Alliance to open the door to the Plane of Death, triggering the undead calamity that engulfed the entire continent. The first senator, Ancient Bone Dragon Gracasio, was once the mount and most capable subordinate of the god of holy light. Now, his strength is incalculable because he is too lazy to make a move and no one is able to force him to make a move. However, looking at how Feyman is obediently the second senator, he is definitely able to suppress the other senators. The third senator's situation is the most unique. She does have a group of banshees under her, and she is also known as the Queen of Banshees. However, in reality, she doesn't care about anything and isn't interested in power. Her only goal is revenge. Yes, revenge, the same as me. Due to the long history, how the ancient elf empire, which spanned across the entire continent, was destroyed, if one isn't a scholar who specializes in ancient elf history, no one would know. However, looking at the destruction of the elf gods and the rise of the god of order, it is probably related to the order gods. Thus, back then, she and I, who was bent on taking revenge on the Church of Holy Light, hit it off well. Not only did she impart a considerable amount of magical knowledge to me, she was also one of the founders of the Yungyar army. At the very least, without her as a veteran to pull the strings, the inexperienced me back then might not have been able to gather so many thousand-year-old monsters, nor might I have been able to suppress so many arrogant undead lords. The first 3 senators back then only had a cooperative relationship with me. There were even 4 unlucky fellows who died in a civil war. If it wasn't for my system's advantage, which allowed me to successfully break through and become the only semigod undead emperor in recent times, I would probably be nothing more than a puppet emperor. High-tier undead are all stubborn lifeforms driven by obsession. My obsession is to change fate, while the only wish of the Harloys before me is to exact vengeance on the Order gods. 100 years ago, she almost achieved this goal. If the living were to be destroyed and the empire of the undead were to be built, the cycle of reincarnation in the world of Aishi would be broken. Naturally, it would be the best vengeance on the Order gods. Perhaps, the guardian gods of a few races might even fall because of this. Back then, she nagged beside me all day about how to destroy the churches of the gods, how to defile the holy church, how to turn the living into the undead, how to make the true gods lose their faith. Alright, I got to know from the death god Ale that if I were to really do that, the gods would not hesitate to pay any price to descend to the mortal world and have a decisive battle with me. There is a 100% chance that I would be reduced to ashes and my soul would be destroyed. Perhaps, the one who couldn't accept the destruction of the Yungyar army the most is her. After all, in her eyes, this is the closest she has been to success in thousands of years. I don't think that she is able to change. If she could change, she would have obediently ascended to the heavens and reincarnated. I don't think that I would be able to hide my dirty tricks from her. This time, since she found out about me, then there are only 2 possibilities. Either she wants to settle the score with me or she wants to force me to rebel with her. Based on my understanding of her, the 9 cities would use the absolute difference in their strength to beat me half to death. Then, they would control me and use my name to reorganize the Shiluor Empire. I wouldn't accept either of these 2 possibilities. Thus, the first reaction I had when I saw her wasn't that of an old friend meeting to drink tea and chat, but, Adam, come out and beat me up. This matter is too troublesome. Alright, I did shout it out. I have never felt so fortunate before. A few days ago, I realized that the opponent was too strong and my subordinates were lacking in strength. Thus, I sought help from Liu Huang Mountain City and sent Adam over to act as my trump card. I am even more fortunate that he only arrived this morning, so it is impossible for the information to be leaked. Hearing my shout, Harloys, who was smiling at me, suddenly freezes. Then, she disappears without a trace. A black iron long sword silently appears from behind her back. If she had been a moment slower, she would have been pierced by the sword. Adam, who is my secret weapon, tore off his cloak. Facing the escaping Queen of Banshees, his usually frivolous face shows a rare hint of seriousness. After closing his eyes and thinking for a few seconds, he suddenly points the tip of his sword downwards and lightly knocks it against the ground. Catcher! The entire space seems to have turned into a spider web of broken glass. The space is sliced by the will of an expert and faintly, spatial cracks appear. In the next second, a scream of agony resounds from the corridor. Ah, damn it! Without any hesitation, with a boom, Adam passes through the wall and slashes at the source of the sound. Incantation of law, judgment. Incantation of law, restrict personal freedom. As expected, Harloys, who had just committed the crime of murder, was instantly enveloped by a red light. Right after that, the spell that restricted Harloy's took effect. Although I could only maintain my spell for a short instant due to the great difference in power level between us, that one instant was enough. I knew that there was someone who wouldn't waste the opportunity that I created. Ah! There was a flash of the sword, and the Dark Elf's right arm was torn to pieces. However, the sword was blocked by the Dark Elf's steel-like body. Ah! The screams continued, but it had already turned into a Banshee's attack. Waves of dark magic spread in all directions. Banshee's howl, known as the most terrifying instant death spell, Death's Shriek, did not have any effect. I am already a dead man. Why would the undying Adam fear the Queen of Banshee's call of death? He charged forward directly amidst the screams of negative energy, closing his eyes and chanting a hymn as if his opponent was nothing. In the blink of an eye, 100 years have passed. My beloved has passed away, only I exist. Flowers bloom and bloom, year after year. I hope to die of old age amidst wine and flowers, reminiscing about the past in a drunken state, flowing time / From me, he obtained the ancient philosophy from the East. From Marguerite, he obtained the local philosophy stories and the mysteries of time and space. After 100 years of accumulation, Adam's martial arts had long become one with his life, rising to a philosophy of his own existence. Perhaps, this was the reason why he managed to become a semigod with a mortal's physical body and talent. At this moment, when even a semigod wanted to chant to him to hypnotize himself, that flowing time / that lamented the passing of time seemed slow, but it broke through the boundaries of time and space. It seemed slow but was actually fast. No, speed was meaningless against this sword. Just like how no one is able to escape from the aging of time, under this sword, everyone was equal, unable to escape. Under this dreamy sword, one would instinctively stare at the body of the sword, unable to move their eyes away, obediently getting hit by the sword. A normal long sword that cost 2 gold coins, but it gave off a strange pink glow and beauty. It was like the smile of a drunken peach blossom beauty, attracting everyone's attention. So beautiful. No. Even the Queen of Banshees, who had experienced the destruction of countless dynasties, was struck in that instant. However, in the next second, she came to her senses. What's so nice about a broken sword? However, it was a pity that Harloy's attention was instantly attracted and the result was already determined. The long sword slashed across her waist. The Queen of Banshees, Harloy's, was unable to resist at all. Her body that had just revived from death was sliced into 2. Her pale white soul started to leave her spiritual body, as though she was trying to escape. Incantation of law, restrict personal freedom. Alright, the culprit was without a doubt the Banshee's soul. Thus, she was stuffed back into her broken body. Then, with a hole in her heart, she was pierced by the longsword again. The upper half of Kajura's body was pinned to the ground. Only at this moment did I heave a sigh of relief. If it wasn't for Adam sneaking into the camp alone, I might have really died. She had just obtained her physical body and hadn't fully fused with it yet. In this state, she was even weaker than when she was in her spiritual body state. Otherwise, even if Adam was a rank higher than her, he wouldn't have been able to take her down so easily. You brat, you dare to do this to me, you dare to kill your teacher. Firstly, you aren't dead yet. Can a 1,000-year calamity die? I'm sorry, it should be 10,000 years, or a few 100,000. A million. I accidentally forgot Auntie's real age. As for killing your teacher, isn't this the tradition of our bloodline? Harloy's was instantly speechless. Back then, she told me proudly about the past, how she swindled the great Saint Cecily's trust, sucked out all of her magic knowledge, then killed her teacher to steal her physical body. The alarm had already rung and soon, people would come. It wouldn't be easy to explain Kajura's corpse here. I took out a small bottle. That was the most common tool in necromancy, specially used to restrain and capture spiritual bodies. Spirit sealing bottle. You can't do this to me. I am the Queen of Banshees, not a lowly, stupid, vengeful spirit. Of course I can. Be good, go in. Looking at the spiritual body that was still struggling in the bottle, I was so happy that I could sing. This time, I really got a great bargain. Based on her style of doing things, she probably noticed me long ago but kept on investigating. After confirming that there wasn't any strong fighting power around me, she took action personally. After obtaining the physical body that she dreamed of, she got carried away, thinking that she could easily take me down, thus she appeared in her weakest form. Not only did she not sneak attack me out of habit, she even intended to mock me directly. If she thought that her power wasn't enough, she took over the physical body of the person beside me and suddenly attacked me. That would be really troublesome. Right, Roland, I seem to be in love again. Who is that girl? She is so gentle and her smile is so sweet. Adam suddenly spoke up, scaring me. I shook my head indifferently. Adam's sudden love would happen a few times every spring. It was mocked by us as an animal's instinctive season. However, if he were to really pursue her, it would most likely be a tragedy. No, not to mention the ending of a comedy. If the other party had feelings for him, he would definitely shrink back before they really started dating. Let's not harm the other party's lady. That. However, there were a lot of things on my mind recently. Seeing Adam's tragedy was a good way to relieve my boredom. Following the direction of Adam's finger, I looked out of the window. Then, I smiled. As expected of Adam, his choice and foresight couldn't be wrong, as expected of our city lord. That is one of the top 2 beauties under my command. Don't worry, we have been brothers for many years. No matter which one you like, I will support you. Really? You don't have a fever? You actually didn't trick me? Adam's joy made me determined to continue tricking him. Don't worry. Have I ever tricked you? I can't even count. You really didn't trick me this time? She doesn't have a boyfriend. It can't be that she is the same as the one you introduced last time, Lily? Ignoring that deep resentment in his eyes, I sighed to myself that even a single-celled animal has a long memory. After coughing lightly, I honestly spoke the truth. They don't have a boyfriend and their sexual orientation is normal. Don't worry. I am speaking the truth. You actually didn't lie. Then, thank you. The intuition of an idiot is very sharp. However, it doesn't work on the truth at all. Alright, an hour later, I heard the scream of "I don't believe in love anymore" that I had been waiting for a long time. My mood became a lot better. I didn't lie. Victoria and Crocer are really the prettiest under my command. Furthermore, they definitely don't have a boyfriend and they aren't gay. Chapter 57. In Vance City, the flames of war are still being lit all around. For the glory of the god equipment, for the supreme power, for the unparalleled authority, the reserved demeanor of the experts and the so-called nobles are all thrown into the wastebasket. At this moment, the big shots who were like kings, gentlemen, great scholars, or hermits in their own territories were also fighting and killing each other like mad dogs. On the other side, due to the assassination of the highest priestess Rose, the army brought by the 20 matriarchs has also begun to harvest the blood. The most puzzling thing is that the core of the problem, the Beastman sovereign Sho, has disappeared without a trace. I don't think that Sho, who has been with the scepter for a long time, is able to get rid of the temptation of the scepter. After spending a month together, his soul has already been locked down by the scepter. The whispers of the devil are still lingering in his ears and it is impossible for him to let it go. Furthermore, there is a big shot behind him urging him on. At the very most, he can only watch from the sidelines, intending to reap the benefits of the fisherman. At this moment, due to the accident of the Queen of Banshees murdering Kaja, the development of the situation is a little out of my expectations. It wouldn't be a pity no matter how many of those fellows who are fighting for the scepter die. Who asked them to be blinded by benefits? Since they are trying to obtain the god equipment, naturally, they are mentally prepared to lose their lives. Alright, actually, there are too many big shots and experts fighting for the scepter. Saint Rank is everywhere, so I can't do anything even if I wanted to. However, I can't ignore the Dark Elves. Victoria returned right after going out. There is no need to take over the troops and forces left behind by Matriarch Saifan. All of her entourage and warriors have already been used by the other matriarchs as blood sacrifices to appease Rose's rage. Obviously, they still feel that the sacrifices aren't enough. Chaos will spread and hatred will be passed on. Even if they require a sufficient amount of blood to appease Lawsi's anger, the Dark Elves will definitely choose the other races first. When the Dark Elves start massacring the other races, the hatred that has accumulated over the years in Vance will explode. The result will be a genocide and a destructive riot. In my hands, I do have a trump card that can suppress them: God Equipment, Origin of Codex, Faith in Law, 557-99999. Every 1,000 people's faith will increase by 1 point per week. By using 1,000 faith points, a remnant page of the main body will be automatically duplicated. This remnant page is a semigod equipment. Effect 1. The Origin of Law. Passive: the place where the wielder is located is the origin of law. Within the area where the wielder is, the enforcers can learn to control the power of law. At the same time, the wielder's power of law will be greatly enhanced, and the effects of law incantations will be increased by 1 level. Effect 2. Ultimate Judgment. Active: consumes 100 faith points of law in one go, and consumes 1 faith point every minute thereafter. When the user activates this effect, everyone in the city will be subjected to a judgment spell that is equivalent to a myth-ranked judge's. If guilty, they will be subjected to various negative effects such as restriction of freedom, invisible shackles, weapon lockdown, armor removal, etc. During the Great Judgment, the effects of all enforcers' spells will be doubled, and their rank will be temporarily increased by 1. Prerequisites: the laws of the city are chaotic, villains run rampant, and the city is about to be destroyed. Effect 3. All are equal before the law. Demarcate a land within the law, lowering everyone's rank and attributes to the same level as the user. For every 10 seconds, 1 faith point will be consumed. Effect 4. The sinner shall be judged. Active: carry out the ultimate judgment on a target, cleansing him of all his sins, and give him the final judgment. Prerequisites: the target will be judged. Very powerful. But in reality, it isn't powerful enough. In Aishi, God Equipment usually hides the God power and divine soul of a true God. Even though this codex represents the origin of the power of law, due to the lack of the support of the God of Law, it is still lacking compared to other God Equipment. Of course, it is still much stronger than any semigod equipment. The reason why the Eternal Night Scepter is so exaggerated, other than the *T of the author, there are even more rumors saying that it contains the secrets and soul fragments of an ancient malevolent god, and Emperor Yongye is the only one who comprehended it. In fact, there are even people who say that Emperor Yongye's soul is within it, and he will choose the most suitable person to be his successor. Alright, I finally understand what it means by rumors becoming more and more real. In front of greedy people, even the original loopholes will be filled in by their own imagination. Now that Vance City is on the brink of destruction, it fulfills the conditions to use the ultimate judgment. Previously, Chrome City was cleansed by the hundreds of temporary legends after the Great Judgment. This time, it seems like I can replicate this thunderous method. However, I don't want to do so. There is no other reason than that the two situations might seem similar, but in reality, they are completely different. Chrome City with just a few legends and the 20+ elf matriarch guards aren't on the same level at all. If I were to use a cold suppression like the last time, even if 300 temporary legends were to go up, they might not be able to win. Even if they were to win, they would lose at least half of them. Furthermore, this is the dumbest method. The reason? War is always an extension of politics. It is impossible to not consider reality and benefits. This time, it feels good to kill them all, but to get rid of 20+ elf matriarchs in one go, it also means that I have resolved a deep grudge with the underground elf world. Also, it is equivalent to resolving a deep grudge with Rose. Other than hatred, there is no other meaning to it. This kind of transaction is too much of a loss. It seems to be a dead end. The only choice left is to watch the massacre of the city or to suppress them with blood. However, isn't my forte in turning a cruel war into a farce, turning a tragedy into a comedy? Give up on resisting and let me in. No, I am the most honorable queen of banshees, not a plaything that you are raising. Get that thick white liquid away from me, you sinful disciple, rogue, pervert, old bachelor. Hihi, go ahead and scold me. You are only good with your mouth. Later on, when I enter, I will guarantee that you will wish for death. Wahahaha. Don't. Pervert, I am your teacher. It is only because I am your teacher that I feel pleasure. Waha, there is no use in resisting. This is my territory, no one will save you no matter how you scream. Just accept your fate and follow me. Master. After hurried footsteps behind me, the door was opened. Eliza, who was in a hurry, picked up the broom behind the door and fiercely hit my head, finally snapping me back to my senses from playing too much. Then, the panting Eliza looks at the situation inside the door and calms down. The wretched scene that I expected didn't appear. Instead, a certain someone is holding 2 reagent bottles, intending to mix them, as though he is intending to experiment with the medicine. At this moment, he is looking at me innocently. Why did you hit me? This. I'm sorry, Master. I just accidentally heard it and thought that I am doing proper business. Wait, I clearly set up an isolation spell. How did you hear it? Could it be that you set up a listening device here? Hehe, there is no need to pursue a girl's secret. The young lady blinks her eyes embarrassedly. Her playful way of sticking out her tongue is really cute. It is a good thing that she has become more independent after breaking through to legend, but... Secret your sister, stop acting cute at this moment. Looking at Eliza, who suddenly seems to be interested in the butterfly knot on her tail, lowering her head and trying her best to act dumb, I am also reflecting on whether I have been too lenient with these juniors. But thinking about what she is about to face, thinking about the heavy responsibility that I am about to entrust to her, suddenly, I lose interest in pursuing it. Forget it, it just so happens that there are some things that I would like to explain to you. If my plan is activated and everything goes smoothly, I am afraid that we won't have much time to communicate in the future. The ominous words make Eliza a little nervous. Master. But before I told her what to do, I looked towards Harlois, who was still struggling in the bottle, and hesitated for a moment. From a certain standpoint, my plan would be a fatal blow to the Order gods, so it should be to her liking. If she was willing to help me, the chances of success would be much higher. Don't look down on Harlois just because she was easily captured. In fact, I have always thought of her as the hardest to deal with among the undead lords. Knowledge is power, knowledge is wisdom. In front of the omniscient Harlois, who has lived for countless years, Marguerite and I can't even be considered as acolytes. The reason why we were able to successfully capture Harlois this time is 90% due to her courting death. If it wasn't for the fact that she was too complacent after obtaining the god's bloodline and physical body, that she didn't even complete the fusion of her physical body and her strength isn't even a third of her peak, she ran out to court death. Furthermore, as an archmage who is disabled in close combat, she actually allowed one of the strongest warriors in the world, Adam, to successfully ambush her. Honestly speaking, Adam and I are very familiar with each other, to the point where 1 + 1 is greater than 3. With a powerful fighter like Adam, in addition to my restraints and counterattacks, even if a mage's incarnation were to appear, I have the confidence to make her kneel down and surrender to me. It is because capturing Harlois made me too happy that I got too engrossed in my role-playing and said some terrible lines, which caused Eliza to rush over. Let's give it a try. If it doesn't work, let's just silence her. Thus, I opened my mouth. All of this starts from a promise. That is the promise I made with the death god Ale by the river Styx when I was still Emperor Yungye. The plan isn't long, nor is it complicated. I finished telling her everything in a short 10 minutes. However, Harlois shouted for me to stop several times, asking me to strengthen the defensive magic against eavesdropping and spying. After I finished, the Queen of Banshees in the bottle seems to have broken down, muttering repeatedly in a neurotic manner, "I didn't hear anything, haha, I didn't hear anything." Hehe, as expected of my disciple, you sure played it big. Should I say that the student has surpassed the master? This isn't right. Why did you tell me this? Could it be that you are trying to find a reason to silence me? However, this plan succeeded and I seem to have succeeded in my revenge. There is no longer a need for me to live anymore. Should I be happy? Eliza, on the other hand, remained silent after listening to everything. Master, is it worth it to sacrifice so much? UN, of course it is worth it. If you don't sacrifice, you won't gain anything. If you don't change, what awaits this world is destruction and calamity. However, I feel that there are still many things that are worth living on. Eliza lowers her head, becoming even more silent. Selfish. I won't deny it. Bastard. True, sometimes, I also feel that I am a bastard. Pervert. I have to deny it. Even if I want to be a pervert, there are conditions. Look at me, I am so poor that only bones are left. However, Eliza suddenly raises her head and interrupts my rant. She glares at me with her phoenix eyes that are widened to the limit. However, her cold face that she used to have in the past is now wet with tears. What kind of intimidation is there to speak of? Looking at the tears flowing down silently, an indescribable pain in my heart makes me lower my head and squat down helplessly. Just like in the past, I carefully wipe the cribberby's face. I'm sorry. I don't need to apologize, I'm really sorry. Bad person, I said that you don't need to apologize. Woo. It is rare for me to apologize sincerely, but it is like a fuse, making the legend rank expert to ignore everything and start crying like a child. Coaxing children is never my forte. I paced around anxiously. However, very quickly, Eliza stopped herself and with a sobbing tone, she states her request. All right, I agree to bear all of this, but you have to promise me one condition as compensation. One condition? This is the condition that I can't agree to. Who knows what she will ask for in the end? What if she asks me to challenge the demon prince one-on-one? However, looking at the tearful look of this girl, my heart aches, but I nod my head. All right, as long as it doesn't go against my principles, no matter what the condition is, I will agree to it. Seeing her nod her head, I heaved a sigh of relief. However, for some reason, my heart aches even more. Thus, master, I gently pull the young lady into my embrace. Feeling this familiar warmth and scent, I feel my heart that had stopped beating start to beat once more. Only then does my heart feel at ease. Although the undead still doesn't have any body temperature, my rare gentleness makes Eliza raise her head to look at me. Just for a while. Just like how I would happily find a reason to crawl into a not-so-warm but comforting embrace during a thunderstorm in the past, the girl who was already an adult silently took half a step forward, allowing me to hug her even tighter as I secretly made a wish. Is it still just familial love now? Big brother Roland, Master Roland, the next time we meet, I will become a good woman that you won't be able to ignore. Cough cough, how touching. Did you forget that there is a third party here? Ayo, it seems like it is a teacher-student relationship again. Looks like this is also the tradition of our faction. Back then, if it wasn't for Cecily actually falling for that wood elf slut, I wouldn't have been so ruthless. Cecily's techniques aren't too bad. Thinking about it now, it is such a pity. I should have extracted her soul and made her into a corpse doll. Harlois, who has regained her senses, unhesitatingly reveals her dark history and even became a third wheel. The usually thick-skinned Eliza, thinking about how she cried before laughing, blushes in embarrassment. She hurriedly pushes me away. In an instant, the lustful atmosphere is swept away. No one will think that you are mute if you don't speak. Looking at the soul spinning in the bottle unhappily, looking at her excited look, I know that not only did she think it through, she has also made a choice. As expected of my disciple. As expected of my disciple. This game is really big. I will help you, but why don't you let me out first? That Kajura's body can still be used with a few patches. You know my strength, I failed this time because I was too careless. If I help you, the success rate will be much higher. I shake my head and smile as I pick up another bottle. Within it, it is filled with a thick white transparent liquid. Then, I heartlessly open the bottle cap, intending to pour it into Harloi's soul bottle. Those are two different matters. What I need the most now is countless children of greed. You should just obediently fuse with the main body of greed. Yes, this bottle of disgusting liquid is only the main body of greed and not some kind of special secretion. What I intend to do is to turn this tragedy into a farce by reenacting the Naked City. I don't believe that those dark elf matriarchs can continue massacring the city without weapons and clothes, and that they can still win against my enforcers. However, if I were to only use the main body of greed to breed the children of greed, not to mention the fact that it would take too long, both sides would suffer heavy losses. This would have a huge impact on the subsequent plans. So, I originally thought that I could only use the final judgment and Adam to threaten the Dark Elves, but the repercussions and losses are not small, so it is definitely not a good plan. However, the sudden appearance of Harlois gave me an additional choice. In terms of control over the physical body of others, there is no existence that can match up to the Banshees who regard occupying a physical body as their race's talent. As the Queen of Banshees, although Harlois is a clean freak and doesn't use physical bodies other than those of royal female elves, with her unparalleled control over her physical body, after fusing with the main body of Greed, it isn't difficult for her to control the rapid reproduction of the 10,000 children of Greed. Don't, it is too disgusting. This thing is weird. It doesn't have a soul, but its vitality is incomparably high. It is too attractive to free souls. I am afraid that I won't be able to come out after fusing with it. Then, how can I help you in the future? The reason of the Queen of Banshees is convincing, but I have already thought of it. Don't worry, this is the creation that I am proud of, Greed of the 7 deadly sins. Its potential has yet to be unearthed. Later on, I will help you fuse with a bit of Kajura's god's blood, allowing it to evolve into a complete body. I guarantee that you will be full of vitality and indulge in pleasure. Right, it is better for the main body to maintain its human form. Do you prefer the body of a lowly or an older sister? Forget it, since the liquid life form can transform, I will just add it in. Your 7 deadly sins? This slime is your undead creation? Save me. Someone killed his teacher, bastard. Have you forgotten what pride did back then? You actually dare to use an undead creation. Anyway, it is impossible for my cry for help to spread, so I ignore it and continue working. Older sister, mature woman, lowly, young lady, old woman. Wait a minute, the old woman form is too heavy, I should delete it. Then, the hairstyle, hair color, clothes. It feels a little like playing a girl's game. Hehe, I am a little excited. You unfilial disciple, I must have been blind to accept you as my disciple back then. The thing that I regret the most in my life is teaching you undead creation. What kind of monsters have you created? This time, you actually want to use me as a raw material. What is this? Why is my color changing? How can a soul have color? I continue to ignore it, there isn't much time left. I have to quickly produce the finished product. I'm melting. Why is my soul melting? What have you done? Death God above, why did I meet you? Why did a normal undead creation become like this in your hands? Uniform made outfit, fallen angel made outfit, beast-eared made outfit, standard English made outfit, mechanical girl made outfit, super short H made outfit. My desire to create is burning. Don't mess around in my body. You bastard-made lover. So warm, so comfortable. No, how can an undead have feelings? What did you do? Hee, be happy, be proud, you will be my greatest masterpiece. Let me think of what other made uniform. Right, angel made uniform. Natural wings, flesh and feather feel are all simulated. Perfect. Looking at her master who was suddenly filled with energy and going all out, Eliza knew that she couldn't stop him anymore. After silently expressing her sympathy to the Dark Elves who were about to be burned at the stake 10 times, Harlois, who deserved to be burned at the stake 10 times, closed the door and left. Knowing too much at once, she still needs some time to organize her thoughts. At the same time, I am not a foolish woman who only knows how to wait obediently. Using the kinship card to get rid of me? Dream on. Eliza also has her own plans and she has already taken action. In a mining shack not far from Vance, on the ice-cold cliff where the Dragon Empress almost fell, a creepy blood-colored altar was built. The locals, on the other hand, had become sacrifices on the altar. No. That is my child. Facing the merciless thugs, the miners tried to retaliate, but it was destined to be futile. They thought that the thugs were their past protectors, the owner of this mining area, the personal guards of the Beastman Emperor show. The one-eyed Lion King looks at the wailing in front of him. The people he protected in the past were sent to their doomsday by him. The Beastman Emperor, who has the image of being close to the people, only looks on expressionlessly without any reaction. But in the crowd, a stubborn dog-headed man rushes out and shouts at the Beast King. Why? Lord Lion Emperor, we have to pay taxes to you, and my nephew died for you. Why? He can't say the rest of his words. He is already pressed to the ground by the veterans with the one-eyed emblem. The veteran raises his head to look at the Lion King, as though asking for his superior's opinion. In the past, in order to maintain the morale of the troops, Shou did take care of the families of the soldiers, but now, ignoring the question of his subordinate, the Lion King's expression doesn't change. Understanding the Beast King's intention, the veteran gathers the rich werewolf's mouth and carries the man up the altar. Placing his head on the altar, he cuts off his head and fresh blood flows to the ground. Ha ha, you traitor. I will patiently wait for you to be abandoned by your own people. You actually sided with the demons. This is the roar of his former ally. But now, the Dragon Empress only has the strength to roar. Her body is so heavily injured that she can't even stand straight. Tied to the altar, she is the most important sacrifice. She who is knowledgeable, how could she not recognize that this strange blood-colored altar is the secondary gate that leads to the residence of the demons in the lower plane? They are here. Shou doesn't even bother to look at his former ally. In his eyes, there is only the new ally who just arrived. Einsterner. Edua, the spatial distortion that leads to Sulphur Mountain City has been prepared. Is your army ready? The one who walks out from the secondary gate is the bald fatty Einsterner. Edua, Shou's mortal enemy. Of course, but let me correct one thing. From today onwards, they are your army. Sulphur Mountain City and I are allies, and you are our common enemy. If you were to fail, hehe, you know what will happen. Hehe, what a cunning demon. Are you going to bet on both sides again? Then, if Sulphur Mountain City were to be destroyed just like that, would you become my ally? Hehe, as long as there are sufficient benefits, we are anyone's ally. Even if it is a foolish demon whose brain only has muscles. Einsterner. Edua laughs, laughing so hard that even the fats on his stomach are trembling, as though he is a gleeful merchant who has just completed a huge business deal. Hehe, haven't we always been allies of the Underground Alliance? Actually, I have a good impression of that Wu Mianzi as well. He is practically a natural-born demon lord. But who asked the new city lord of Sulphur Mountain City to be a human? The underground world only needs one human underground autarch, the second one is too dangerous. The two underground autarchs who each have their own ulterior motives laugh. Accompanied by the curses of the other autarch who was used as a sacrifice, accompanied by the screams of agony of the sacrifices before their death, the laughter traveled far. Chapter 58. That is an 8 to 9-year-old elf girl. Under the princess umbrella, she sits on her little chair. The little girl's silky blonde hair flutters in the wind. She covers her mouth and giggles while focusing on the lollipop in her hands. Her white skin is as smooth as milk. Her cute pink princess dress has a cute little bat pattern on it. Her pink cheeks have a shy smile. Smiling sweetly, she looks like an angel that has accidentally entered the mortal world. Noticing that I am looking at her, her face turns red in embarrassment. However, her pink tongue doesn't stop. Instead, it speeds up like a greedy cat that is secretly licking milk. Not long later, half of the lollipop has been licked. In the eyes of others, she might be an innocent little girl who smiles sweetly at the sweetness of the candy. However, I feel uncomfortable looking at her. What a cute little girl. Lord, where did you kidnap her from? Eliza has already calmed her emotions. Pushing the door open, she finds this unfamiliar little girl very curious. Your grandmaster, the omniscient Harlois. I reply expressionlessly. Then, Eliza drops the intelligence documents in her hands on the floor. Pushing her spectacles, she doesn't say anything and starts picking them up silently. What aren't you asking? For example, why did this old witch suddenly pretend to be young? For example, where did greed go? Her reaction is so calm that I find it weird. No, the moment I remember that she is your teacher and that your current state is somewhat related to her, I suddenly feel that no matter what kind of person she is, I can accept it. What do you mean by I can accept it because she is my teacher? You make it sound like I'm hopeless and unreliable. When have you been reliable? The matter that is related to you has been reliable. Stop guessing blindly. I can't read minds and you didn't accidentally spill the beans. Even if you are wearing a mask, when have you ever been able to hide your emotions from me? It seems like you have forgotten that I have been with you for decades. Looking at the venomous tongue of the past, Eliza, who seems to have returned to normal on the surface. Lowering her head to hide her swollen eyes, I, who pretends to be calm, don't know what to do. Fortunately, there was an idiot who did not know how to read the atmosphere. The old witch finally remembered that she was the third undead senator, the Queen of Banshees. It would be too unsightly for her to lick a lollipop like a child, so she hid the candy behind her back and was about to throw it away. However, she felt that it would be a pity. Then, she was too embarrassed to peek at us. When she realized that we were still chatting, she hurriedly carried the candy on her back and opened her mouth to chew on the rest of the candy. Then, before he could swallow the candy in his mouth, he quickly turned around. Haha, good disciple, I didn't expect your undead creation to have reached such a level. Cough, cough. Yep, to think that even an undead would have a sense of taste. Wahahaha. Cough, cough, cough. My body is so powerful. I can feel the god's blood circulating within my body. Perhaps I'll become even stronger than when I was at my peak. Cough, cough, cough. I finally coughed it out. I almost died again. Behind her was a cold wind created by magic. Her petite body floated in the air, but she intentionally used an aged tone to speak. However, in the eyes of the listeners, there wasn't a shred of dignity. Other than that cute and innocent voice of a child, they thought that after saying 2 arrogant lines, she choked on the fragments of the lollipop and coughed uncontrollably. I could understand the excitement of an undead who suddenly regained their sense of taste. However, acting cute maliciously isn't right. Not to mention, an old witch pretending to be young doesn't look cute at all. Thus, I laughed out loud. Waha, Eliza, look at that silly look of hers. She is already so old, yet she got choked on a candy. However, I stopped laughing halfway. That was because I thought that Eliza was looking at me with pity in her eyes, as though she was looking at a child who was laughing at 100 steps away. I could roughly understand her thoughts now. You might need a mirror. That time, you applied too much lubricant on your face and your bones couldn't be reconnected. Afterwards, I had to use glue to help you fix it. Back then, I probably looked as silly as you. Alright, it wasn't that I could read minds, it was just that Eliza had already said it out loud. Cough, Harlois, I. Just as I was about to change the topic, I was interrupted by Harlois. Call me teacher. I am very satisfied with this body and I am also very interested in your plan. So, I will remember that debt. For the time being, I won't expel you from my tutelage. Shaking my head, I didn't retort. It was just a form of address. In any case, she did teach me many things. If she wanted to be my teacher, then so be it. Fine, old witch, teacher, why did you change into this form? Your physical body has dozens of fixed forms, so there should be other forms that you can change into. Or perhaps, a personal interest. Do you want to try pretending to be a young cow? Harlois sighed and shook her head helplessly. No, this is my true form when I die. Only when the soul and the physical body are compatible can they resonate better. In order to allow the physical body and soul to completely fuse, it is better for me to maintain this form for a short period of time. Speaking of which, you are probably the only ones who know of this form of mine. What? Hearing that, even I, who had known her for a few hundred years, was shocked. That is to say, this is the true form of the old witch's soul. That is to say, back then when she turned into an undead, she was this innocent and cute. When she died, she was only this big. What is there to be shocked about? Don't you already know? Undead are the product of obsession and curses. The purer and nobler the soul, the darker the reality, the more desperate it is. The more vicious the curse, the easier it is to give birth to a powerful undead. Back then, weren't you also? Cough, let's not talk about unnecessary things. Right, how is the matter with the dark elves going? Not wanting to be exposed, this time, it was my turn to interrupt the topic. Knowing that I don't want to talk about those old matters, Harlois shook her head. With a wave of her hand, the sand in the air floated up, forming a sand fort on the ground. Actually, There were countless sand men moving freely. Looking closely, they were no different from a real person. Among them, there were countless sandballs chasing after the sand men. Once they caught up to them, they would jump on them and merge into a ball. After the sandball left, not only did the sand men lose their clothes and equipment, they were also paralyzed and unable to move. The potential of the Child of Greed is limitless. With just a slight evolution, its battle prowess has increased by at least 10 times. If you let me use my human form to control it, I can split the army into battle squads and groups to coordinate with you in battle. I guarantee that I can easily control this city. Child of Greed, Evolution, Race, Half Undead Slime. All stats, 5 race abilities, Devour Reserves, Secrete Fibrous Decomposition Fluid, Rapid Self-Replication, Single Elemental Magic Control, Single Elemental Magic Immunity, Paralyzing Venom, Liquid Transformation. System Evaluation. I have nothing to say. If you want to destroy the world, just do it. If you don't want to wake up one day to find that only jelly is left in the world, then you better keep her in check. The god's blood was still very powerful. This time, the Child of Greed didn't seem to have changed much, but in reality, its individual battle prowess was at least 10 times stronger than before. Liquid Transformation gave it an extremely strong resistance to physical attacks. According to the different colors and compositions, it had complete immunity and control to single elemental magic, and it also had a certain spellcasting ability. Against the Dark Elves, 90% of the Child of Greed that was sent out this time was the Child of Greed. For Priest Rose, who was proficient in curses and dark divine arts, these black liquid slime that were immune to dark elements and negative energy were the most difficult natural enemies to deal with. However, if she really did as she said and created slime warriors, slime mags, and started a slime war, then the underground world might really think that a hostile intelligent race had appeared. That would be a huge problem. Oh right, my dear disciple, can we talk this over? Of course, I've always been very open to discussion, except for the cancellation of the magic pet contract. I am the all-knowing one, the most noble and ancient queen of banshees in existence. How can I be a stupid and despicable magic pet? That is what a stupid animal should do. You are already a magic pet, stop playing tricks. According to the contract, if I die, you will die with me. If you die, I will try my best to squeeze out 2 drops of tears to express my sorrow. Yes, in order to tie the strongest iron chain on this extremely dangerous person, the current Queen of Banshees Harlois is my mage magic pet, Harlois, Mother of Greed, race, unable to be classified. Strength, 22, Agility, 10, Stamina, 40, Intelligence, 28, Will, 25, Charm, optional. Job, LV60 Mage, LV20 All Elemental Mage, LV1 Overall Evaluation, Beginner Legend Rank Race Ability, Shapeshifting, Epic, System Evaluation. This is your magic pet, but she is constantly thinking about how to kill you within the limits of the contract. Manage her well, or else, just wait for her to kill you. The reason why Harlois is so obedient is because she has already signed a magic pet contract with me. Actually, under normal circumstances, although necromancers are able to sign a magic pet contract with another undead, it is impossible for such a powerful and intelligent magic pet contract. It is just that I took advantage of a loophole in the rules. As a necromancer, I am able to sign a contract with my creation Greed. Greed only has instincts without a soul, so a magic pet contract with a soul as the target is naturally ineffective. However, by placing the unconscious soul of Harlois into Greed's body, the contract naturally treats Harlois, who has lost her will and resistance, as Greed's soul. Thus, the contract is successfully established. As my magic pet, based on the basic rule that a mage's magic pet cannot surpass the mage's level, Harlois's strength drops rapidly. She drops from epic by 2 ranks to beginner legend rank and she becomes much more obedient. After signing this magic pet, the benefits for me are obvious. 10% of the magic pet's basic stats will be added to the owner. However, to normal mags, it usually isn't of much use. Those ravens, black cats, bats and owls have terrible stats to begin with. It is already rare for them to be able to add 1 point to stamina and 1 point to agility after 10%. However, my magic pet, strength +2, agility +1, stamina +4, intelligence +3, will +2, necromancy +30% and elemental magic +20%. It is really overpowered. Not to mention, it has powerful battle prowess and the ability of the Child of Greed. To speak the truth, the reason why I signed a magic pet contract with her is because I lack the most basic trust in her. I really don't dare to put her out of my sight. This magic pet contract can be kept even after I revive. At that time, even if this powerful magic pet falls back to 1 rank, it will still be the most powerful support for me to cleanse myself. According to the plan, the day of my revival isn't far away, so I have to consider the future ahead of time. Thus, I look at Harlois with malicious intentions, 40 points of stamina, what a top-notch meat shield and HP ball. Teacher, in the future, I will have to rely on you to get beaten up. At this moment, Harlois suddenly exclaims in surprise. Why did those fellows appear? On the sand map, the group of experts is moving towards the direction of the city gate. Looking at this situation, I smile. Have you heard of god equipment having a spirit that chooses its master? Nonsense, the number of god equipment that I have touched is at least 2 digits, but I have never seen a god equipment that chooses its own master. No matter how strong a god equipment is, it is created to be used by humans. If god equipment are smart enough to choose their own master, then wouldn't they have long returned to the hands of their original master? Or perhaps, they would be annoyed by those fools fighting with each other and just dig a hole to bury themselves. God equipment choosing its master? This is obviously a lie that the main character in a knight novel would say. If the god equipment really grows legs and runs away, don't even think about the god equipment recognizing you as its master. The first thing you should do is to meet with a plot or a trap. It is a pity that some people don't see it that way. Or perhaps, they thought of it but thought that it was an accident. They still can't get over it. Looking at the group of people breaking out of the city on the sand map, I can't help but sigh. Space distortion is a natural space tunnel. It is usually an unstable space node. After entering it, it is completely unknown where you will be sent to. 90% of space distortions are like this, a completely random dimension gate. However, there are usually some connections between space distortions. From one space distortion to another, it is most likely to happen due to random teleportation. In fact, there are some space distortions that form a relatively stable connection, like a bridge, to form a stable space tunnel. There are quite a few of these stable space tunnels in the underground world, and they are already seen as normal space tunnels. Furthermore, the underground city lords view them as their wealth and military strongholds, so they set up checkpoints and fortresses. However, the formation of spatial distortions mainly depends on nature. Even if the number of underground worlds with unstable spatial structures far exceeds the number of surface worlds, if one were to find a spatial distortion in the vicinity of Vance that coincidentally leads to the vicinity of Sulphur Mountain City, the possibility of it being a spatial distortion is negligible. However, with an extremely profound spatial magic and a huge price to pay, it is possible to create a temporary link. Previously, the sudden ambush was through the activation of a hidden spatial distortion in this mining area, forming a temporary passageway with a cave located 30 miles south of Sulphur Mountain City. After which, the two autarchs brought their guards to carry out the ambush. Of course, this means that the underground autarchs have been keeping an eye on Sulphur Mountain City for a long time. Linking two spaces has to be done from both sides at the same time, and it is time-consuming and not something that can be prepared in a short period of time. Back then, when the Beastman army that he brought with him was wiped out, in order to prevent the space distortion from being discovered, he even ran back directly. This time, it is very different. The two space distortions are forcefully linked together for the second time. The unstable space tunnel will become stable and the temporary space tunnel will become a permanent space tunnel. On the other hand, the price that must be paid and the difficulty of linking the space tunnel will increase by a huge margin. In terms of space magic, if the demons, who live in the lower plane and wreak havoc on countless other planes, were to say that they are number 2, there is probably no other race that dares to say that they are number 1. This blood-red demon altar will make use of the unstable space structure of the space distortion to use a large amount of sacrifices to open the gate to the demon plane. At the same time, the demon count who has been waiting for a long time will personally make a move to link this space distortion with Sulphur Mountain City. As long as Sulphur Mountain City is gone, what do these fools amount to? Show's words may be unpleasant to the ears, but he pointed out the biggest weakness of Sulphur Mountain City. Sulphur Mountain City's defenses are weak and it lacks strategic depth, thus, it only has a single city. Hehe, it is just 100 years of history, what does it count as? If we destroy its base, no matter how capable Adam and that Wu Mianzi are, they are destined to lose their foundation and won't be able to stir up any waves. Of course, there are still some things that they didn't say out loud. For example, the request of the bosses behind both sides to remove the seal on the fire elemental god and the intention of both sides to fall out with each other after getting rid of Sulphur Mountain City. At this moment, countless soldiers have started to get into formation. They are waiting for the time when the dimension gate opens. My 12 armies, 79,000 underground beast men, in front of my elite troops, those cowards in Sulphur Mountain City aren't worth a mention. I will lend you 4 divisions. Although there are only 30,000 people, 2 of them are mage divisions and 1 of them is a dark wizard division. It should be able to make up for your lack of magic power. The huge army starts to gather and silently, war flags are erected. This is the foundation of the underground autarchs, the elite fighting strength of a dozen underground cities. There are quite a few legend rank and saint rank experts among them, and there are even a few myth rank bosses. Different from the previous time, this time, the underground autarchs are prepared. Suddenly, Sho looks towards the sky of Vance City. He is first delighted, then shocked, then angered, and finally, a sliver of fear. Eternal Night Scepter. It actually flew over on its own. Yes, the scene in front of him seems to be a scene from a night novel. The god equipment has chosen its master and came from 1,000 miles away. To the deeply poisoned Lion King, this is naturally a joyous matter. But what makes him shocked, angered, and even fearful is that the people chasing after the scepter don't agree with the so-called god equipment has a spirit, choosing its master. You are not allowed to touch it, that belongs to me, Grim Span. No, only Ramstein, who is closest to an undead emperor, is worthy of that scepter. I have already heard its summoning. Fool, that is your misconception. The scepter is obviously summoning me. This is a test given to me. At the very front are 3 undead senators who are on the verge of insanity. Looking at the frenzied soul fire burning in their eye sockets, it seems as though they are already burning their own souls. As for those behind them, they have everything. I really don't know how the gigantic 9-headed dragon emperor managed to come over from the faraway swamp. With its gigantic body, it should be impossible for it to pass through the underground tunnel. On the other side, the archangel wielding the sun bow is currently fighting with the flame demon wielding the flame whip while chasing after it. The sand dragon king of the desert is currently destroying the entire underground tunnel. The elf knight riding on a unicorn is currently in a horse race with the Death Lord. Thousands of experts from different races are chasing after the scepter, and blocking their way is the allied army of the 2 underground autarchs. At this moment, Sho inexplicably recalled the words the man in the long robe and mask left behind before he left a month ago. You might regret it. At that time, he heroically replied. The Beastman Emperor never regrets. But at this moment, looking at his own army being embroiled in a strange battle and being crushed and slaughtered by the experts of different races, feeling a weakness that he has never felt before. Looking at the eternal night scepter that is glowing brilliantly in front of him and Edua who has abandoned his army and disappeared without a trace, the white-haired old lion can only sigh helplessly. Wu Mianzi, you are right. I regret it, but, Wag. The Beastman never gives up. But in the next second, after a frightening roar, the Lion King, who never gave up, returned after a scar on his face that recorded his hatred. Wu Mianzi, who is even more cunning than the devil. I admit that I regret it, but that doesn't mean that I will admit defeat. Wu Mianzi, I will definitely repay you tenfold for what you have done today. 1st, 7th, and 9th Division, advance. One-Eyed Division, face the attack head-on. Get into formation. Let them see the might of the Beastman army. The weak surface dwellers actually dare to behave atrociously in the underground world. Kill them all. Greed is always the hardest sin to restrain. Looking at the Eternal Night Scepter fan club that has already disappeared from the sand table, I intend to stand up and make my move. Not waiting anymore. The underground autarchs aren't that easy to deal with. We have to make our preparations as well. Eliza, help me thank Miniel for the information he sent over. If it wasn't for him telling us about the gathering of the Old Lion Army, we would have really messed up this time. Right, get Anne and Adam to make their preparations. It is time for the decisive battle. Chapter 59. Compared to the bright surface world, the sky in the underground world is always dim and dark. People are already used to the excessive impurities in the water and the muddy underground water that needs to be filtered before it can be drunk. They are also used to the clothes that are hung outside their houses to be filled with dust if they are not careful for too long. They are also used to coughing blood at a young age, and all kinds of respiratory diseases occur frequently. Perhaps, this is the main reason why the descendants of the exiled always yearn for the blue sky and white clouds on the surface world. After all, who doesn't wish for themselves and their descendants to live a better life? At this moment, the originally dim sky becomes even uglier. The clouds in the sky turn into a strange blood-red color and a sinister wind blows. If it were to be pressed down a little, a nauseating stench of blood would fill the air. The gloomy winds weren't naturally formed. In the world of Ike, where souls truly existed, these gloomy and evil winds were formed by souls transforming into undead shards. And when enough blood was shed and enough people died, a relatively isolated negative energy environment would naturally be formed. This was the so-called birthplace of the undead, the cursed land. When too many people die at once, the souls are unwilling to leave just like that. Under the influence of each other, the undead will remain in the human world and the undead will be revived in large numbers. There was even a precedent of a city being massacred and the entire city turned into a city of death. The guardian knight who died for the city were all turned into undead knight. This is also the reason why the victors of every war on the surface world have to clean up the battlefield. Other than retrieving the spoils of war and burning the corpses that might bring the plague, they also have to invite priests to expiate the souls of those who died. Otherwise, after a few decades, if another cursed land where the undead gather, that would be a huge problem. But even so, with the ancient battlefield that the undead lords love to occupy as proof, if tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people die at once, coupled with the fall of sufficient experts, the heavy aura of death won't dissipate. The excessive blood stains several meters underground red and the despair of the experts will remain in the human world. When all these conditions are met, the expiation of the priests won't be of any use. It will still forcefully create a cursed land or even a higher-level cursed land. But this time, the surroundings of the mining area outside of Vance is destined to become a new cursed land. It was the smell of the battlefield that belonged to the era of cold weapons. The smell of blood drifted with the wind for miles, and the dark, gloomy wind lingered over the battlefield. The cries of the living and the howls of the survivors echoed across the battlefield. Standing in the pool of blood, the Lion King took one last look at his old subordinate who had followed him for decades. He raised his axe and gave the veteran who only had half of his throat left his final release. Clean up the battlefield. There was no room for mercy on the battlefield. It was an order squeezed out through gritted teeth. In a war, healing spells and supplies would never be enough. Priests and other healing professions had long since used up all their divine spells in the war. Now, cleaning up the battlefield was more like giving relief to those on both sides who couldn't be healed. Did he win? Indeed, the Lion King and his army had indeed won. After paying the price of nearly half of the army's casualties, tens of thousands of soldiers who didn't care about the consequences died, and countless souls perished along with them. The powerful individuals who were blinded by greed finally remembered that protecting their own lives was more important than obtaining power and authority in the future. Those who were still alive began to flee, but those who were already dead or heavily injured were destined to stay in a foreign land. However, it was already too late. Ha 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 ha, how delightful. Shonuya, I can already see your end. I didn't expect that the curse would come true so quickly. I'll be waiting for you in hell. As for the red dragon who witnessed everything, her blood had already flowed all over the altar. She was tied up like a chicken waiting to be slaughtered, but she still mercilessly taunted her enemy. Did he lose? Yes, at the same time that he won this war, the Lion King also lost. He lost everything. The 12 elite battalions had lost more than half of them. 2 battalions were completely annihilated. The trump card Cyclops battalions, as the backbone of the resistance against the first wave of attacks, had lost more than 90% of their numbers. However, what was worse was not just the things that were on the surface. War was the continuation of politics. If a war couldn't bring about any benefits, even if he was victorious, he might have lost from the very beginning. Looking at his trembling hands, Sho recalled the moment when he smashed the skull of the great schemer Painey Hall and extinguished the green soul fire within, the other party's crazed gaze and curses. He knew that this matter wasn't over yet. A Lich wouldn't die that easily. After she resurrects, vengeance or even the army's invasion would be inevitable. Shiluor Empire's 11th Senator's encounter was just a small part of it. The 10th Senator decaying and King Ramstein doesn't have the ability to resurrect from the dead. When his old partner Grimspan left with his incomplete body, his eyes were filled with hatred, but it was also a sign of the shadow of a new war. What happened to the undead senators was just a portion of the experts who met with misfortune. It's over, I'm finished. Just as Molly ridiculed, Sho's political career as an underground autarch was already over. He and his army had just beheaded the head of the Phyllis Kingdom of the Elves' royal knight and hung the Ottoman Empire's grand tutor on a spear. Even the only disciple of the legendary beast tamer Gierdansk was beheaded. In the end, it was already hard for the beast men to identify which big shot they were and what kind of powers were behind them. They were already numb to it. Sho himself knew that no individual or organization would be able to survive under the wrath of so many powers. No one, not to mention that this is the underground world. Most of the corpses that fell to the ground belonged to the underground city lords that he had met once or were once under him. A blood debt. Sho didn't regret it at all. Could it be that just because the other party had a powerful background, he had to hand over his head? The other party had already made it clear that they wanted to get rid of him, the inheritor of the god equipment, to become the new Emperor Yongye. Should he just obediently hand over his head and the god equipment? The only thing that made Sho regret was the way the soldiers looked at him. They no longer respected and trusted him as they did in the past. Their eyes were filled with bewilderment and fear. Occasionally, when they looked into each other's eyes, their eyes would wander, avoiding each other's eyes and whispering to each other about his secrets. Look at those dim yellow eyes, those claws and those demon wings. Our king is actually a demon. Then what are we fighting for? Sho was forced to his limits by the undead senators. In order to save his life, he was forced to use the power of the demon. The power of chaos and the characteristics of the demon that would never appear on an ordinary beastman couldn't be hidden from the tens of thousands of soldiers in front of him. The hostility towards chaos in the underground world is far from that of the surface. As an underground city lord, he can collude with the demons, dance with the demon gods and plot with the devils. However, as the representative of the beastman race, if he isn't even a beastman, what right does he have to sit on this position? Sho can already imagine that when the rumor spreads across the entire underground world and those ambitious underground city lords use this as a reason to rebel, the soldiers under him would probably be at a loss as to who they are fighting for. No, I am not done yet. I still have this. I will become the new undead emperor. The god equipment scepter that is radiating a dazzling radiance in his hand has become the only thing he can rely on. Suddenly, the altar behind him emits a dazzling blood light. Countless yin spirits and fresh blood are drawn into the altar by an invisible force. The fresh blood forms a river on the ground. The souls of the experts who are unwilling to die just like that wail in agony, but they are still sucked into the door that leads to another dimension. Sacrificial offerings, such rich offerings. So many high-quality souls, so many delicious delicacies. I, Soul Eater Karkagil, will become even stronger. Well done, Sho. I will give you a corresponding reward. I will allow you to obtain the blessing of the Chaos Abyss. The altar has long been activated. Due to a freak combination of factors, out of everyone's expectations, This war became the best blood sacrifice for the demon Count Carcajil. In this war, thousands of legends fell and close to 100,000 Beastman elite warriors died in battle. Their souls and fresh blood could even allow this demon count who is known as the Soul Eater to start his advancement. Perhaps, in less than 1,000 years, a new demon duke would be born. But demons are never creatures who know how to be satisfied. Scepter, quickly give me the eternal night scepter. Even to the demon count, a god equipment that contains the secrets of a semigod undead emperor is a treasure that can only be found by luck. Perhaps, after obtaining it, he would be able to add death, undead and other chaos elements to his power. If so, his path to advancement would be smooth sailing. Hearing that his master wants the scepter, Shou's face turns ashen. He wants to run away with the scepter, but following the arrival of the offerings, this place is linked to the lower dimension. In front of the demon count, how could he possibly run away? In the void of the dimension gate, a gigantic ghastly hand stretches out. With a flick of its finger that makes one's heart tremble, the scepter flies over. Ha! Eternal night scepter. Great, is today my lucky day? I will go down and beat up those demons for entertainment. Shou kneels on the ground in despair. His last pillar of support is gone and his position as the Beastman sovereign will soon be lost. With the blood sacrifice reaching such a level, the demon count can even come to the mortal world directly. His position as the representative is probably at its end. Suddenly, a furious roar reverberates throughout the entire space. Fake, it's fake, who is it? Who dares to fool the great Carcajil? I want to tear him into pieces. The entire dimension gate starts to tremble and very quickly, a gigantic hoof covered in raging flames steps out of the gate of hell. Following which, a malevolent goat-horned head bursts out. The entire world turns dark and the ground starts to crack. The flames from the underground reach the surface and at a distance, a few dormant volcanoes erupt. Under its rage, the demon count, Soul Eater Carcajil actually descends to the mortal world. At this moment, Shou is shocked by the fact that the scepter is fake. He gave up everything, but in the end, he was fooled right from the start. Impossible, impossible. As he mutters to himself, that sentence mysteriously resounds in his mind once again. You might regret it. Wu Mian's he. You tricked me. But at this moment, no one cares about Shou's furious roar. The furious demon lord has already grabbed him in his hand and placed him in front of him. Who is it? Who dares to deceive the powerful Carcajil? Is it you? Little demon bastard. Just by standing there, that 100-meter tall body feels as though it is whipping the earth. All of the plants wither, the volcanoes erupt and the earth cracks. Carcajil's existence starts to break the surrounding laws. A demon duke is able to compete with a god, but a demon count who is a rank lower than him is already an invincible existence in the mortal world. The pungent smell of sulfur makes one suffocate and the immense force exerted on his body melts all of his bones. That gigantic mouth that devours flesh and souls is right in front of him. The Beastman Emperor is going to make his final argument for his life. At this moment, facing his lord's question, the figure of the man whom he hates to the bone appears in front of Shou once again. No, it is all Wu Mianzi and that darned Sulphur Mountain City. They were the ones who sent the scepter over. This is all their scheme. It is that man who deceived you, great demon count. Hearing this, the demon count hesitates for a moment. Looking at the beast men who are screaming in fear at the side, in the end, he decided to spare the life of this mixed blood. No one dares to lie to Carcajil without paying the price. Use your life to atone for your sins. If you do well, I will spare your worthless life. The Fiend Earl casually waved his hand, and the dimensional gate was completely opened. Countless fiends swarmed in, and on the other side, a brand new gate was opened. Vaguely, a beautiful mountain city can be seen, Sulphur Mountain City. That's the place for the new sacrifice. That city is filled with the disgusting power of order. Fool, lead the way to where the fire elemental god is sealed. If you delay Prince Cavendish's matter, I will make all of you wail in my lamp forever. At this moment, our group is still moving forward slowly, chatting as we walk, as though we are on an outing. From the start, I didn't think that those greedy fellows would be able to deal with an underground autarch. After the alliance treaty ends, it is completely reasonable for an underground autarch to attack an underground city lord. In the end, we still have to fight it out. The location of the decisive battle has already been prepared, and all that is left is to invite the audience to enter. There aren't many of us. Me, Adam, Little Red, Marguerite who is still in Sulphur Mountain City, and minus Lisa who can't come. The small team from back then is here. But this time, we intentionally brought Anne and Eliza along. Little Red and Adam are filled with excitement for the upcoming battle, while Eliza remains silent as usual. However, I noticed that the lowered head and isn't in a good mood. Her condition is related to my epic class quest. I have already decided that after this battle, regardless of whether she breaks through to legend rank or not, I will get Adam to pass the position of City Lord to her so that I can fulfill the basic requirements for my revival. I can finally have a physical body. If I were to remain in such a weak state, how am I going to deal with the upcoming trouble? As long as I revive my physical body, with the system and my advantage of being familiar with the plot, I can swiftly grow stronger and start my series of plans. Furthermore, I have been looking forward to seeing what grade of physical body I will get from this revival. Physical bodies are also divided into grades. Of course, the Goddess of Order and Goddess of Chaos weren't fair when they created things. The direct creation of the Goddess of Order, the giant dragons, is considered a gold race. Without doing anything, they would at least have gold rank fighting prowess when they reach adulthood. On the other hand, the second-generation humans are barely comparable to the Iron race. A normal adult can't even defeat a skeleton soldier. The full name of my current Lich body is Undead King, Silver. It is equivalent to the powerful template of the Silver race. The strength that it gives me isn't inferior to the boost that Eliza gets from beastification. Even though it is obviously unfair, it is the cruel reality. Adam, who has reached the pinnacle of mortals as a semigod, might not be a match for Little Red, who is far weaker than him. Back then, Eliza, who was also at the pinnacle of gold, was able to single-handedly defeat and who was at the same rank as her. This is the influence of one's physical body on one's overall fighting prowess. It determines one's basic stats, race talents, and abilities. Furthermore, it is the foundation of all power and magic. No matter how skilled one's swordsmanship is, what can one do if one's body is weak? If one wields a sword with 2 hands and meets an opponent who wields 8 swords with 3 times the strength of one but whose skills aren't too far off from one's, one still won't stand a chance. A building 10,000 feet tall rises from the ground. The depth of the foundation determines the height of the building. In order to raise one's overall fighting prowess, one's bloodline and physical body are very important. Of course, the weaker races also have the advantage in numbers and tools. On the other hand, the normal gold bloodline grows abnormally slowly. Otherwise, the surface world wouldn't be ruled by the weakest race, the human. However, to me, in order to deal with the upcoming troubles, power is indispensable. The demon army won't talk reason with you. Their race talents and basic stats are so strong that it makes one's hair stand on end. The favored of the abyss, just how strong is the race talent of the demon prince? Perhaps, it isn't something that the gold race dragons can compare to. Last time, it was already silver rank. This time, will it be a physical talent comparable to that of the dragons? Or perhaps, one rank higher? However, in history, that demon prince was still killed by humans. Perhaps, this shows that race talent isn't everything. Alright, I know that the unlucky demon prince is the me in history, and the hero who killed me is Anne, who is obviously not in the right state of mind. What's wrong? Are you afraid? Suddenly, recalling that period of history, I wondered if she counts as the demon king who counsels the heroes before a battle. If one day, she really grows up and kills me with a single slash, should I give myself the Demon King award for moving the world and working hardest to seek death? No. I just feel that I'm so stupid that I can't help. Different from the awkward Eliza, and has always been a frank and good child. When she was asked about her troubles, she would speak up directly. However, Adam and Little Red, who have been listening attentively, smiled. It is obvious that in their eyes, Anne's troubles aren't anything much. I used my eyes to signal Adam to comfort her, but he raised his head to look at the sky and acted dumb. Little Red suddenly became interested in the ant nest on the ground. Helpless, she looked around. In the end, I still had to do it. Heh, those fellows have accumulated their strength for thousands of years. You aren't even 20 yet, it is normal for you to be unable to catch up. It's not that, and can accept the difference in strength. And just feels that she is so stupid. Seeing how busy everyone is, she can't help at all. Big sister Eliza knows everything, little Victoria is suppressing everyone in the Alliance conference, and I, the future city lord, can only watch from the side. Looking at the troubled Anne, I had a headache. Teenagers and girls always like to compare themselves with others of the same age, and it is easier for them to get into a dead end. Just like back then, the most free person in our party was that idiot, Adam, because he thought that he would most likely mess things up. In this generation, compared to Eliza, who has full control over the spectators, and Victoria, who seems calm but is actually devilishly cunning, and is indeed immature. However, if I were to tell her the truth, she would probably be even more depressed. As the future city lord, if she loses confidence, my epic quest would be ruined. Thus, I rolled my eyes and came up with a plan. You misunderstood. Do you remember what I told you last time? The most important thing as a city lord is to know the right people and use them well. Throw the troublesome matters to the people who are good at solving them. Look, that fellow over there is the current city lord, isn't he just lazing around? Cough cough. Hearing me mention him, Adam faked 2 coughs to signal me not to mention him. It seems like he knows his place. As long as I mention him, there is a high chance that nothing good will come out of it. But Uncle Bones, you also said that everyone's path is different. I don't want to be like my godfather, everyone is so busy and there are so many things to do, but he hides to laze around. He is also lazy and is always criticized by the citizens. That is so unsightly and embarrassing. Being called shameful by his goddaughter, Adam's face instantly turned sour. Little Red even held her stomach and bent over in laughter. Eliza, on the other hand, nodded her head and looked at me with deep meaning, indicating that you are about the same. If it was in the past, I wouldn't hesitate to mock him, but this time, just like last time, even if I was helpless, I had to protect his image. Actually, the city lord has important things to do, not just to protect everyone, but this can be done slowly. Actually, there is one more thing that you can work hard on now. And Adam is doing well in this aspect. What is it? You are the leader, so you have to point out the direction for everyone. At the very least, you have to give everyone the confidence that tomorrow will be better, so that everyone will be filled with motivation and hope to work hard in their lives. If you really can't find one, you can just make one up. But, I don't even know my own direction. Then, you should ask your subordinates what they hope for the future to be. Combine everyone's dreams and hopes for the future together. Perhaps, this is the direction that you should lead them in. After hesitating for a moment, perhaps, it is time for me to clarify some things. I started to talk about my personal experience. Let me give you an example. Many years ago, there was a tyrannical king who decided to stop his invasion and reconcile with the surrounding kingdoms. But at this moment, if he were to speak directly to his subordinates and generals, there would only be one outcome. What outcome? And asked curiously. He would be overthrown. His subordinates, who are like hungry wolves, have yet to be satisfied. His subordinates, who are nobles and domain lords, have yet to obtain enough territory and population. They would directly overthrow the king who is in their way and swiftly elect a new leader to continue the invasion of the empire. The one who answered Anne's doubts was Adam. Looking at his leisurely expression, it was apparent that he had been thinking about this problem for a long time. Yes, back then, there were 7 undead lords who were only slightly weaker than me in the Yungyir army. Even if they were to suddenly agree, how could I explain it to the middle-rank and high-rank undead generals? Every single undead general was excited about the coming undead era, and I wasn't even confident in convincing my own 4 heavenly kings. If I were to say that I wanted to reconcile with the living, the only possible outcome would be being overthrown. That is why, most of the time, a ruler is just a combination of the wills of the middle and lower ranks. The direction that he points out is the direction that most people are looking forward to. You don't have to think too much, just learn to listen. Look, even though there are many freaks in our city, everyone is actually living happily. Even those perverts who are often imprisoned haven't left this city. If you like this city, then protect it well and let it be the same as it was in the past. Isn't that enough? Yes, just like what I said, with the strength of Beifong, Eaglestorm, Shueti and the Bayar brothers, there is no place in the world that they can't go. Perhaps, they could even become nobles in other places. However, they chose to stay in this city that is filled with rules and restrictions, acting recklessly according to their personality while accepting their punishment. This also means that there is something that they dream of here, something that is impossible to find in other places. My words were too broad, causing the young city lord to nod her head, seemingly understanding what I meant. Think about it while you are troubled. Work hard bit by bit. That is how everyone went through it. Your big sister Eliza will help you too. This time, Eliza didn't make things difficult for me, only nodding her head silently. And will work hard. Even though her eyes were still dazed, from the way she was waving her little fists, she seemed to have regained her spirit. Congratulations for completing the epic tier quest, Nirvana of the Phoenix 50%. Please continue to work hard. After the quest is completed, you will be given a specific reward based on the final completion rate. The system also didn't want to be left out and reminded me of its existence. However, the actual reward made me feel motivated once again. Before we reached our destination, the ground suddenly started to shake and crack. The volcano in the distance started to take its revenge and an ominous red cloud appeared in the sky. It was obvious that something was amiss. At the same time, Adam took the lead and charged to the front. Borrowing the god sword from Anne, he slashed a rock by the side and split open half of the cliff. As for him, he raised his sword high and made a standard charging action of a knight, pointing at a small hill and shouting, "Who dares to come out, otherwise, I will slash the hill along with you." For the usually lazy Adam to be so agitated, even though there was no need for him to draw his sword, he still slashed the cliff. Little Red and the others were a little confused, but I pouted my lips in disdain. My magic eyes had already told me the ending. Isn't it just because you lost face that you want to show off in front of your juniors to regain some face? You will have the right to cry. Following which, under Adam's furious roar, a bald dwarf scout ran out from behind the hill. "City Lord, don't slash, it's me. Spectator number 4267, we are on the same side, I am on the same side. It's you brat. It's me. There's no need to say any more, you with your thick eyebrows and big eyes, you are actually a counter-revolutionary. You traitor, you actually led us into an ambush. See how I, representing Sulphur Mountain City, execute you. Pa. This isn't the sound of a gunshot, but I couldn't bear to watch on anymore. Thus, I kicked Adam, who knew that he was in the wrong but was still stubbornly holding on, away. This scout obviously has important intelligence, and if this farce were to continue, it would really mess things up. Skimming through the intelligence, even I was shocked. There is an explanation for the collapse of the sky and earth just now. A demon count isn't easy to deal with. I immediately threw the intelligence to Little Red. After reading it, she turned into her dragon form without saying a word. Due to the existence of various Dragon Knight in Night novels, most of the intelligent dragons were actually disgusted by the actions of mortals using them as mounts. But at this moment, Little Red didn't have any qualms. Come up, I will fly at full speed, so I will definitely be able to stop them. The opponent this time isn't simple. You all better recuperate and prepare for the final battle. Chapter 60. What are demons? Perhaps, no matter what race they are, their first reaction upon hearing this question would be disgust, extreme disgust. It can be said that no living creature would like demons, including themselves. Towards their own kind, they are mostly filled with resentment and hatred. Chaotic, violent, evil, destructive, greedy, untrustworthy, other than cunning, almost all negative nouns can be attached to them. The reason why no one would accuse demons of being cunning and deceiving is because most of the time, these creatures of chaos lack the interest to communicate. If they can use their muscles to solve the problem, they would definitely not use words, not to mention using their brains to deceive others. The devils, who are equally evil and have many similarities in various aspects, although they also have a bad reputation, in reality, they are much more popular than the demons. It is just that the devils like to make contracts and transactions. They are reasonable. Although there are some overbearing clauses and hidden clauses in the contracts, there will definitely be some deceit and hidden tricks in the transactions, but the devils are also famous for keeping their promises. It is much better than those demons who destroy everything indiscriminately. The demons are the first generation of people created by the goddess of chaos, Cynthia. They are the ones who tempted the first generation of humans to fall into the devils and also the ones who created the undead calamity. Logically speaking, they should be the natives of this distant universe, the backbone of the Chaos faction. In this book, the demons belong to the Chaos faction. They follow the goddess of chaos, but as they used to be the people of order, their actions are biased towards order. But in reality, demons were the mortal enemies of devils and the public enemies of the undead. Their internal conflicts were the cruelest, and all species loathed them to the extreme. However, they still occupied the vast majority of the lower planes and caused havoc in various planes. There is no other reason. They are strong enough and have enough numbers. As long as the river Styx is still flowing, the undead in it is still constantly transforming into the lowest tier dretches, the demons have an endless amount of backup. The plane where the demons reside in is forever in internal wars, and after the cruel internal wars and devouring, it is destined to produce true experts. When demons and devils of the same tier fight one-on-one, more than 90% of the demons will survive. Every time the demon gate of the main plane opens, even if it is only a small group of demons entering, it is still a huge problem. After leaving the lower plane, they will gradually decline, but before they die and return to the lower plane, they will bring along countless souls, and souls will forever be the most valuable currency in the lower plane. And this time, it is really troublesome. In the past, the demon worshippers only dared to secretly sacrifice a few people. Sacrificing 1,000 people is already shocking. This time, more than 100,000 veterans and over 1,000 legendary experts have undoubtedly created a new historical record. This unprecedented sacrifice allowed the demon count to descend with his true body. This is definitely an unprecedented disaster. An abyssal earl didn't seem to have a high rank, and there were many of them in the bottomless abyss. However, in reality, they were already existences at the level of an abyssal army commander. If he advanced one step further, he would be an abyssal duke. That was usually the overlord of a plane, and he could fight against a true god. Among the demons, Marquis and Grand Duke are both honorary titles. The demon Marquis are those who are much stronger than a normal count but are unable to advance to duke because they do not have their own plane. The Grand Duke is an existence that can look down on normal duke-level demons. Vance City is already in a mess, and the news of the demon nobles descending has already spread like wildfire. Even Rose doesn't have the time to care about the matter of her daughter being killed. After being banished by the elf gods, the underground world is her only territory and source of faith. If it is turned into ruins by the demons, she will have to go into hibernation or even fall. Of course, it would be even more embarrassing if she descends directly and gets beaten to a pulp. She is probably discussing with the other gods of the underground world about the decision to send out their troops together. By the time the true gods step in to solve the problem, the entire underground world would probably be in a mess. Spatial summoning and teleportation are the specialties of the demons. Using the spatial distortion and demon altar, the gate to the abyss is opened. In response to the summoning of his lord, Carcagil's direct army surges into the main plane. Dretches, Quasirs, succubi, spider hunters, Vlo demons, Glabrazu demons etc. Demons that can be classified and can't be classified all rush into the main plane, until the main plane gate is finally unable to withstand the pressure and cracks into pieces. The entire battlefield is filled with demons. Looking at the distant Vance City, the low-tier demons are filled with desire for fresh blood and souls. But under the suppression of their master, they suppress their instincts and enter another permanent spatial distortion, Sulphur Mountain City. The demon army is vast, and the might of their army is eroding the laws of this plane. Wherever they pass by, the plants would naturally wither and die. The land would turn into reddish-brown scorched earth, and right after that, even stranger plants would grow. Furthermore, most of them are carnivorous plants with strong offensive capabilities. The existence of the demons created from chaos itself is enough to destroy the laws of the plane. At this moment, half an army of demons has descended into the mortal world, along with the true body of a demon count. If they aren't chased away as soon as possible, the laws of this plane would be completely distorted and even turn into a new lower plane. Low-tier hellhounds are scarlet red in color, and they are even uglier and bigger than the ugliest wolf. They serve as both scouts and hunting dogs. Without waiting for the army to arrive, they who are adept at spitting fire and ambushing as a group have already swept away all the tribes along the way. When they dragged the Terrorclaw family who just suffered a calamity to their master to claim credit, they realized that there is a person blocking the path in front of the army. That's right, there was only one person, a person in a blue robe. She leaned on her ivy staff and was quietly reading the ancient book in her hand. Even when the hellhounds charged at her, she didn't lift her head up. Catcher. That low-tier hellhound is frozen in mid-air and turns into an ice sculpture. Following which, it shatters into pieces and falls to the ground. On the other hand, Marguerite's attention is still focused on her book. It is only when the army approaches that she raises her head and uses her staff to lightly tap on the philosopher's stone that is floating beside her. Ice Eon. The forbidden spell that she had prepared a long time ago explodes in an instant. The ice spirit sings loudly in midair, and the entire underground world turns into a land of white snow. Endless ice and a blizzard rush towards the demon army. After the blizzard passes, the entire world turns into ice, and the number of demons frozen to death is uncountable. However, Marguerite frowns the most. After all, she is only replicating the magic of someone else. She doesn't have the soul imprint, racial talent, and other buffs. She only has the most basic might and is far from the original version. If Lord Yongye's Ice Eon was to be blasted by this, even a demon marquis would be finished. However, if it is Marguerite who is casting it, kill her. Under the thick white snow, 100-meter-tall figure is the first to stand up. Its entire body is covered in raging flames, and it roars as it charges forward. As expected, the majority of the might is blocked by this demon lord. Shaking her head, Marguerite isn't discouraged. With a wave of her staff, another philosopher's stone shines with a bluish-purple spatial radiance, and she is teleported several miles away. Foolish country bumpkin from the main plane, you actually dare to make a fool out of the great Carcajil. I will tear you into 13 pieces and feed them to the dogs. Then, I will roast your soul on fire for 10,000 years. However, it is obvious that Marguerite, who has already escaped far away, is unable to hear this vicious curse. The majority of the might of the forbidden spell is blocked by the demon count. Other than those low-tier demons of the fire element being killed by the double damage from the Ice Eon, the losses of the army isn't too great. However, very quickly, after walking a few miles, the same thing happens again. Compound forbidden spell, Song of Fire and Wind. The fire and wind compound forbidden spell originating from Ein Mesus brings about 100-meter-tall tornado of flames. It even brings the powerful Carcajil up from the ground. However, it is a pity that the outcome of the battle this time is even worse. This spell of wind augments the strength of the fire, mainly relying on the damage of the flames. Due to the natural resistance of the demons to fire, Marguerite is only able to deal basic damage. In the end, less than 1,000 demons are killed. On the other hand, the weak beastmen cannon fodder are swept into the tornado of flames, resulting in more than 10,000 casualties. Then, looking at the female saint who disappears into the dimension gate once again, the furious Carcajil can only grab a few beastmen and chew them to vent his anger. The weird thing is that when the beastmen look at their compatriots being eaten, not only do they not resist, they don't even discuss about it. Furthermore, their current appearance is very abnormal. Their crimson eyes are filled with blood veins as they stare blankly in front of them. Their already huge body grows even bigger. Regardless of which beastman race they are originally from, their skin has an unhealthy red color. On the other hand, most of the experts have the characteristics of demons. Demon's blood. Yes, just like what I heard previously, as Show's final choice, the demon's blood has been mixed in the drinking water this morning. However, once it is activated, Show will have no way out. At this moment, the demon's blood bestowed by the Demon Lord has been activated, allowing the potential of the Beastman elite soldiers to be stimulated. While their fighting prowess increases greatly without fear of pain, they also become puppets in the hands of the demons. As for Show himself, he is the cannon fodder number 1 who charges blindly. Right now, half of his body is frozen while the other half is burnt. The only reason why he didn't die to the forbidden spell is because his life is tough. At the peak of the mountain far away, looking at the dim Saint Stone, Marguerite makes a slight estimation and is a little surprised. Opening a dimension gate to escape after throwing away the forbidden spell. Kiting a mage, I didn't expect that fellow's messing around tactic would be so effective. It is a pity that the copied forbidden spell has been used up. It would be even harder to see the effectiveness of the regular AoE magic. No, at the very least, I can buy some time. They should be here soon. Disappearing from the dimension gate once again, killing intent appears in the great saint's calm eyes. That is the dissatisfaction of having his most cherished possession threatened. From their current position, they can faintly see Sulphur Mountain City. If the demon army were to enter Sulphur Mountain City, definitely not. Definitely not. But it is a pity that things don't always go according to one's wishes. After the demon army and Carcajil are prepared, this kiting tactic doesn't have much of an effect anymore. Especially when the Saint class had used up all of the copied magic, their offensive magic takes up a lot of time and their might is low. Especially after that familiar-looking Abyss Demon Dragon was on high alert. There were 2 times when Marguerite was almost frozen by the other party's space anchor. If she were to react a little slower, she would be surrounded and killed by the demon army. Finally, realizing that this isn't able to buy any time and that it is just a waste of magic, gritting her teeth, looking at the demon army which is getting closer and closer to the city, Marguerite teleports to the top of the city walls. But what is surprising is that the top of the city walls is already filled with people. Sulphur Mountain City doesn't have an army. After Wu Mianzi took away half of the town security which can barely be called an army, the remaining are all here. But what is most surprising are those commoners. The engineers of the various races are working hard to assemble the cannons and catapults. Druil of the Wild Bull Alliance is also wearing his leather armor and picking up his wooden staff. The students of South Ascension Academy are carrying their wooden sword and walking up the city walls. As for the Holy Church's Holy Knight and Holy Church's priests, they are passing their spare equipment to the youngsters to equip. At least, they are still able to fight. But those aunties and uncles who are using pot lids as helmets and their own kitchen knives as weapons, I don't know whether to laugh or cry. This. Looking at the bustling scene of preparing for war, Marguerite is a little touched, but also a little speechless. Who told you to come? Who? They are willing to come. I interrupted Marguerite's words. At the side, Little Red is so tired that she is lying on the ground with her tongue hanging out. On the other hand, Adam is sitting on the cannon on the city walls, squinting his eyes as he looks into the distance. He seems to be very relaxed, but I know that all of his focus is locked onto that tall demon lord. Originally, Adam and the others intended to intercept the demon army along the way. But after seeing the endless demon army and the inconceivably powerful demon lord, I suggested to wait for them to come to us in Sulphur Mountain City. After all, this is where my final trump card is hidden. Yes, everyone is willing. Everyone just wants to use their own hands to protect their own home. Looking at the bustling scene, Anne's fighting spirit soars. Crimson flames burn on the god sword. Looking at the situation where everyone is united, she is already faintly feeling the path to becoming a legend. This feeling isn't too bad. There are many capable people in Sulphur Mountain City. When the news of the infamous demon army invading the city spreads, this city without an army doesn't scatter in all directions as expected. Instead, the powerful experts armed themselves and walked up the city walls. The ordinary citizens who don't have any strength organize themselves to take on the role of logistics. Everyone is doing their best under the same banner, using their own hands to protect their own home. Somehow, through the obstruction of time, I seem to see the future that isn't too far away. Every city is like this. Without an invading army, under the brilliance of the law, the citizens consciously stay away from evil and enjoy the pleasures of life to the fullest. When equality becomes a reality, people no longer label races as good or evil. War only appears in operas and epics. The youngsters start to criticize the war heroes of the past, lamenting that chaotic times create heroes and that peace buries their talents and that they are too unlucky. Hey, looks like I didn't waste these 100 years. Suddenly, I feel motivated again. Looks like living another 100 years isn't a problem. Looking at the busy figures on the city walls, I smile, a smile that comes from the bottom of my heart. As for Marguerite, she is still trying her best to persuade the ordinary citizens to leave the city walls. But, from the looks of the citizens who are rushing up from both sides of the passageway, this attempt is destined to fail. Looking at the demons who are getting closer and closer, I laugh even louder. Looks like those fellows intend to use their numbers to win. What do you guys think? Hee, competing with the undead emperor in an army duel? Your Highness, please let us teach these demon brats what a true army is and what a true pointless charge is. It was a tall headless knight. The polo stick in his hand was as eye-catching as the bald head in his hand. At this moment, his cross-eyed eyes were fixed on the incubus warhorses. He had been wanting to change his mount for a long time. That's right, I have been spinning plates until my bones are sore. Finally, there is a chance to pick up a sword. Whoa, there is also the 8-armed snake demon instructor. Leave them to me. I will kill whoever dares to snatch them from me. This is an 18-armed skeleton general. At this moment, he is trying his best to change the pole-holding plates into sharp swords. I can finally get rid of those darned colored balls. Your Highness, let me go to battle. I am a general under your command, not a pet dog. The one who speaks pitifully is a skeleton dog whose 4 limbs are haphazardly attached. Looking at how he is covering his nose and acting pitiful, no one would think that he is the most fearsome head of the 7 deadly sins, wrath. Looking at the surroundings, the high-tier undead behind me are looking at me pitifully. Behind them, the blue war flag fluttering in the wind and the castle in the middle of the hurricane on it is obviously a design from a few hundred years ago, leaving a deep impression on me. All of you have taken out the Mist's war flag. Why are you still pretending to ask me? Oh. Great, even my bones are rusting. Long live your Highness. Yes, it is your Highness and not His Majesty. The reason why they address me respectfully isn't because I am Emperor Yunye, but because I was the last prince of the Mist Country. On the other hand, they are the last remaining soldiers of the Mist Country. A bunch of fools who are unwilling to die just like that and are willing to follow me to the end of the world. My general, is our army ready? Of course, your Highness. Your army, be it 376 years ago or 250 years ago. Or is it 130 years ago, when did we let you down? The 24,662 defeated soldiers of the Red Hunting Hounds are grinding their teeth in peace, waiting for orders at any time. We can't wait to return to the battlefield. It is still that pet dog who died with grievances. The answer is exactly the same as the one he gave me in the undead playground 2 months ago. However, this time, it gives me a completely different feeling. The soul fire burning in the eyes of the undead seem to be repeating their determination to follow me to the end of the world no matter how many times they fail. I take a deep breath. The Roland sword by my waist is boiling hot. Could it be that the blood of the undead is boiling too? Luckily, the undead don't cry. Otherwise, it would be really embarrassing this time. At this moment, my old horse, Yunye, walks in front of me. It tilts its body and looks at me expectantly, as though waiting for me to get on it again. Yes, their determination has never changed. What am I waiting for? What am I hesitating for? What am I worried about? What am I afraid of? Yes, my knight, you have never disappointed me. Beat the war drums, blow the horn to charge, raise the Mist's war flag high. My knight, charge with me. Chapter 61. In the extreme north is the snow country, Mist. It is a bitterly cold land, but it is rich in minerals and magic crystals. The country is wealthy, its businesses flourish, its people are valiant, and its soldiers are valiant. In the east, it fights against the beast men and elves, and in the west, it borders the demon abyss. It has been defending against the foreign races for nearly 1,000 years. Its royal family is rather old-fashioned, and every generation has had princes as their generals. However, in the last generation, there was an ominous twin prince. That was the sign of the country's demise. Following that, the foreign races invaded, and a natural disaster descended, and the country was on the verge of collapse. All that talk about civility is bullsh*t. Every time I look at the description of the mist country in the history of the continent, I feel so disgusted that I want to vomit. What kind of history is that? It's obviously praising those victors. What kind of natural disaster is that? It's obviously a man-made disaster. Let me review the real history that I have collected and sorted out. AD 1518, 378 years ago, the beast men and demons invaded at the same time, attempting to enter the rich human world to plunder wantonly. The entire mist country was at war. According to tradition, the eastern front was led by Prince Roland, while the western front was led by Prince Cavendish. At that time, the two princes were only 12 years old. 4 years earlier, the tyrant Carloe III of the neighboring country, Saint Fordia, came to power. He violently levied taxes, causing the people to have no way of making a living. In order to divert the internal conflict, he directed all his arrows at the rich and powerful mist country, inciting conflicts at the borders. At this moment, seeing that the mist country was in dire straits, he actually gathered the other two ambitious neighboring countries to invade the only safe southern front of the mist country. The mist country was on the brink of destruction. Under such dire circumstances, as a holy knight, Prince Roland returned to the headquarters of the Holy Church. In a joint conference of the various countries, he accused the invading countries, who disregarded basic morality, and requested for them to withdraw their troops immediately. However, Saint Fordia, who was already prepared, made a false accusation against him, and he was even slandered as a heretic who colluded with the demons. Cardinal Ben Zuma, who had already accepted the bribe, declared Roland a heretic on the spot, detained him, and planned to publicly execute him. The various countries, who were moved by Saint Fordia's private promise of the distribution of the magic crystal mines, silently allowed this to happen. If it wasn't for the fact that this matter went too far and caused the grassroots holy knight and priests to riot in protest, he might have been executed immediately. In the same year, Cavendish barged into the headquarters of the Holy Church alone, killing countless guards, and rescued the imprisoned Roland. Blood dyed the stairs of the Bine Cathedral red. Among the dead, there was the illegitimate son of the church, and the church son. The church, which Bine Church, and shocked kingdom. This was known as the Bine Massacre. The powerful holy knight and priests watched as everything happened. 2 years later, Pope St. Paul IX stepped down, and Ben Zuma was banished. Before this pope stepped down, the Bine Massacre was the fuse. The mist country and its royal family were stripped of the Church of Holy Church, and the entire country was judged as a heretic country. The irony was that the country's eastern front had already been broken through by the Beastmen alliance, and the western front had fallen into a meat grinder with the demons. This heretic didn't even know where he was heading. In the spring of AD 1519, 377 years ago, the current Pope St. Paul IX declared a holy war against the heretics. The various countries, attracted by the huge benefits of magic crystal mines, special products of other races, and slave trade, actually responded to this ridiculous invitation to the holy war. However, the holy knight and priests, under the suppression of the higher-ups of the church, still maintained their helpless silence. In the same year, the entire mist country was broken through. Under the summons of the royal family, the surviving citizens hid in the final capital, Defender, while the remaining troops retreated to defend the capital. AD 1520, 376 years ago, after being trapped for 15 months and running out of food and ammunition, the last capital of the human kingdom, the mist country, Defender, was conquered by the allied armies of the humans. Prince Roland led all the defending troops and died in the city. Prince Cavendish went missing. That year, the two princes were 14 years old. The heavily injured human allied army massacred the entire city to vent their anger. However, due to the long period of war, The resentment of the commoners and soldiers before they died caused Defender to surpass the level of accursed land and directly transform into a land of death. The Night Knights who were already dead and the commoners who were unwilling to die just like that became the servants of death and began taking revenge on the living. Caught off guard, the Allied army suffered heavy losses. In the end, the missing Prince Cavendish actually reappeared. This time, he really colluded with the demon army and took revenge on the entire human world and the Holy Church. This war lasted for 16 years. Countless kingdoms were destroyed and the entire human world was turned into hell. In the end, the demon army was destroyed and Cavendish was banished to hell by the Holy Church. Because of this, the Holy Church also carried out a comprehensive internal reform. After that, the royal families of the various countries that invaded the Mist Country were completely destroyed in the Yongye calamity over 100 years ago. Some long-lived species even suspected that Emperor Yongye was the Prince Roland from back then. After all, the Mist War flag was far too conspicuous. However, under the Holy Church's full denial, the matter was left unsettled. After that, the Mist Country became the dark history of the human world. If there was a need to mention it, there would only be that twisted and simple summary in the history books. In the last generation of the country, an ominous twin prince was born. That was the sign of the country's demise. Soon after, the foreign tribes invaded and a natural disaster descended. The country was about to be destroyed. Prince Cavendish colluded with the demons and led the wolves into the country, leading to the destruction of the country and the 17 neighboring countries. Destruction? The skeleton horse under me charged at the front. Looking at the Mist War flag waving in the air and the demon army in the distance, I felt as though I had returned to the era of war. Thus, I raised the broken sword of Roland. It was the symbol of the Mist Country's authority. As long as I, Roland, am still around, the Mist Country will not be destroyed. The Mist Country will never be destroyed. Carrying the war flag and charging, wasn't that the skeleton General Fade? As the head sword saint of the Mist Country's Royal Knight Squad and later the Red Hunting Hounds, he had experienced countless battles over the centuries. His body was covered in wounds, but there wasn't a single wound on his back. The reason? As the flag protector, the war flag he carried on his back had never tilted, much less fallen. Charge, Knight. Flatten these darned demons. That was the plague tyrant Lich Kakana. It was no wonder that her charge sounded a little out of place. She wasn't a soldier at all. If it weren't for those things that happened, she would have become an alchemy merchant selling beauty products and nutrition products. Among these 24,602 defeated soldiers, there were soldiers who had died for the country, and there were also commoners who had gradually become soldiers. They came from all sorts of strange origins, and their composition was a mess. However, this group of unreliable old fellows was where my soul returned to. My people were behind me, my knight was by my side, and my kingdom was right here. Then, to talk about destruction, to talk about the destruction of the country, it was simply a joke. Return, our kingdom, our capital, soul world, the infallible Defender. Snowflakes fell leisurely and it was snowing heavily. Time seemed to have returned to the winter of that year. The soul fire burned fiercely. After sacrificing everything, the first soul imprint to awaken was the already damaged ice treader. Snow drifted for tens of thousands of miles, making it impossible to see into the distance. The cliffs and the ground were all covered in snow. Thousands of miles were sealed in ice and the north wind was biting cold. That was the winter of the north that we were familiar with. The demon army, which was mainly of the fire element, shivered in this sudden snowstorm. This feeling was far more dangerous than the forbidden spell from before. This was the most natural cold of the natural world, a cruel elimination that took away all life. While the demons were shivering, our undead army burst into laughter. The undead never feared the cold, not to mention these fellows who grew up in the snow country. Their fighting prowess in the snow was even greater. Yes, the soul world that I was so proud of was only a pure support world. It was meaningless without my army. However, as long as it was with my army, it was unquestionably the strongest in the world. And this snowy land was just the beginning. I am the Lord of the Undead, the Prince of the Mist Country, the Chief Knight of the Last Night Group. I vow to protect my people and my country. I vow to never bow down to invaders. I vow to change the fate of everything. I vow to allow all life to be born equal. That was the vow of me, the ancient prince of a fallen country. After that, it was the vow of the knight. Your Highness, I am your kindest knight. I vow to treat the weak kindly and help anyone who seeks my help. Slants, the kindest knight. He led the refugees to flee thousands of miles to Defender. Among the hundreds of refugees, the only one who died of hunger was him, the one who distributed the food. Your Highness, I am your strongest knight. I vow to stand up against rape bravely, not regretting even if I die 100 times. Camisia, the Titan wrestler that I was so proud of, the fearless attacker. Even when he was decapitated, he didn't stop his charge. Your Highness, I am your most righteous knight. I vow to stand up against all wrongs, regardless of where they come from. Fandirk, the holy knight who complained about the injustice at the Alliance conference with me. I was saved by Cavendish while he was hanged in the Holy Light Square. Even until his death, he maintained the righteousness in his heart and didn't bow down to anyone, be it the secular church or the so-called faith in the Holy Light. Your Highness, I am your most useless knight. I vow to fight for the defenseless, but I can only use my body as a wall. Carlos, who dares to say that you are useless? In order to save the refugees, the exhausted, you used your body as a shield for the civilians, guarding the stone bridge alone without retreating. In the end, you died from 100 arrows. Your Highness, I am your most beloved knight. I vow to help my brother knight and use my body to protect their family. Lucas, you did it. Everyone's family is fine, but what makes everyone's heart ache is that the only one you didn't protect is the 15-year-old you. Your Highness, I am your most loyal knight. I vow to follow you till the end of time. Bustian, my son of wrath. From a pet dog, you walked step by step to become the leader of the Red Hunting Hounds. Some say that you relied on the powerful body that I bestowed upon you. Some mocked you as a brainless dog that only knows loyalty. However, you smiled in the face of sarcasm, treating dog-like loyalty as the highest honor. Your claws and anger are always directed towards your enemies. Origin of Order, if such a knight isn't fit to be Valkyrie, then you are blind. If such a knight isn't fit to be called a hero, then those epic heroes are just people who deceive the world. Return and fight for me once more, my knight. Under the infusion of soul power, the soul imprint that symbolizes life revives once more. The shattered undead crown and the destructive sun of light light up once more. The powers of order and chaos clash with one another and fuse together. In the end, it turns into the light of law that changes everything. Under the call of my knight and I, a radiance flashes and the entire world is replaced. A soul world replaces the real world. It was a boundless land of snow in the starry sky. Smoke and battle cries filled the air. This was the smell of battle. And at the very end of my vision, the city named Defender was currently burning. Defender was the home that I had always hoped for, but would never be able to reach. This is my soul world, the infallible Defender. Under its effect, we have returned to 376 years ago, that snowy night. At that moment, Defender still didn't fall. My knight and I were still fighting. My soul world descends and reality is rewritten. My knight and I are no longer the unsightly appearance of bones and corpses. The war flag of the berserk wind flutters in the wind. Beneath it are lively faces and well-built bodies adorned with the emblem of the berserk wind. They are no longer ordinary undead. They are the incarnation of the will of the heroes after their deaths. They have been bestowed with an undying spiritual body by the Origin of Order and a beautiful name, Valkyrie. Valkyrie and undead are separated by a thin line. In my soul world, my loyal knight is the only Valkyrie who are qualified to be called heroes. At this moment, they possess several hundred years of strength and experience, surpassing the limitations of the incomplete physical bodies of undead and obtaining a perfect physical body that is most suitable for them. Their strength has increased by at least 3 times. Looking at such a change, the senseless demon army starts to tremble and retreat. Logically speaking, every single Valkyrie is at least a legend rank existence. They have no chance of winning. Demon Count. That's not enough. Send a Demon Prince or Grand Duke instead. The Valkyrie Knight has already started to sweep through the demon army. The maniacal laughter of Camisia, Bustion, and the others reverberates across the battlefield. The great sword Saint Fade, carrying a war flag on his back, dances among the demons. 18 sharp swords float around him, slaughtering them. Just him alone is like a sword formation. The ability to control swords granted by the body of Valkyrie makes it much easier for him than when he is in his undead state. At this moment, the raging Cerberus has already displayed its formation. Arbao and Arbi stand together and in a distortion, they merge into one, revealing their true form. The Cerberus starts to chant the Song of Hell at the same time and the gate to the plane of death is opened. That is the Demon King of Wrath, who represents the god of hell. Leading the charge, I have already entered into the depths of the demon army. At this moment, the mountain-like demon Carcagil is right in front of me. However, I smile delightedly. Waving the sword of Roland that has unknowingly become complete once again, I whip the reins and the gigantic black warhorse, Eternal Knight, whizzes forward and charges into the enemy formation. In this world, I am still the Holy Knight Prince Roland and not the incomplete Lich Roland. I am the chief knight of the Knight Troop. At this moment, Adam is already locked in battle with Carcagil. Seeing that I have come to support him, he is stunned for a moment before smiling. As expected, it is Big Brother Rolo. Why, have you finally thought it through and decided to meet me one last time? Yes, although I have reverted to my past appearance and my age isn't quite right, the shape of my face should be too similar to the Big Brother Rolo in his memories. It is time for me to verify my conjecture. Sigh, I originally intended to send you off with my past appearance after reviving completely. Let's talk nonsense later, there is someone waiting for me. So, do you need help? Of course, if we can gang up on each other, we won't fight one-on-one. Isn't this what you always say? Old enemy, old friend, old brother? I can't tell them apart anymore. Adam and I smile at each other. The crimson godsword and the silver longsword clash in midair and sparks fly. In the next moment, we strike the demon count at the same time. Slash of the flowing water, holy light, that enemy is worth fighting. Chapter 62. When the infallible defender lands, the outcome of this war has been decided. In front of the fluttering mist's war flag, in front of the loyal knight who has transcended the river of time, when the horn to charge is blown, the massive demon army is nothing in front of me. I have always believed that in front of the fluttering mist's war flag, no matter if it is the demons or devils from the lower plane, or the angels and Valkyrie from the upper plane, none of them will be able to stop the charge of my army. We will be invincible in the world. Camisia, who was clearing the path for me, has already recovered to his peak. Beneath his gigantic war helmet are muscles. Stepping on flames, he is charging with all his might. The 2 4-meter-long dragon spears are his arrowheads. How many years has it been? As my strongest knight, he has always stood at the front lines of the army. Regardless of whether it is the powerful berserker demon or the gigantic demon hunter spider, they are as weak as little chicks in front of him, who was born with godly strength. Just a slight graze would cause the heavy gold essence dragon spear that normal people wouldn't be able to lift. He can easily lift 2 of them. In the past, this super vanguard would be unable to stop once he started charging. His only weakness was that his mount was too heavy and easily exhausted. But today, his undead mount had also stepped into the realm of heroic spirits. His fearless charge would no longer be stopped. On his right, the young Carlos, who is known as the most useless knight, is raising his shield high, blocking arrows and magic for him. At this moment, he is the whetstone that ensures the sharpness of the arrowhead of this charge. Moving city walls is the title that the young knight is proud of. In terms of the skills of a shield bearer, Carlos is still the best in the entire royal knight group. Even when this noble soul is stuffed into the body of an ugly abomination undead, this tall young man is still silently using his body to block arrows and magic for his comrades. Even if he isn't skilled in offensive martial arts and magic, if there is really someone who looks down on him because he isn't skilled in offense, then he can buy a coffin. That is because those comrades who were saved by Lucas would unhesitatingly use their lives to protect the honor of the young knight. But seeing how the brown-haired boy easily blocked the magic and arrows, it seemed that he, who had regained the right to use the shield, was stronger than before. On the left of Camisia is old Sir Ferdinand. He is the swordsmanship instructor for me and Cavendish, the representative of the strongest swordsmanship in the Royal Knight Order. Furthermore, he is the father and teacher of the great sword Saint Ferdinand. The old general's silver hair was grizzled white. Facing the demon army in front of him, he didn't even use the sword technique he was most proficient in. He raised the silver bow on his back and fired. Squinting his eyes, he controlled the bowstring and shot 6 arrows at once. None of the demon officers he had chosen had survived. Regardless of strength or prestige, he is definitely the most qualified knight to answer my call, but, venerable old Sir Ferdinand, are you still blaming yourself for not accomplishing your task? Please don't blame yourself. This really isn't your fault. No one could have expected that you, the undefeated knight, would exhaust your life force and die on the way to accomplishing your mission. Perhaps, it's all my fault. If I had known that you, the one who drank 3 bowls of strong liquor before leaving, were forcing a smile on your body that was nearing the end of your lifespan, I wouldn't have sent you, who had already retired, into battle to carry out this mission that is destined to fail. At this moment, the old general seems to have endless fighting spirit waiting to be unleashed. As a light-armored knight with weak defense, he would always charge forward carelessly. If the demons thought that they could make use of this opportunity to kill him, this old sword saint would use his sharp sword to impart the old saying that ginger is still spicier with age. The female holy knight behind Camisia, Lonnie and Fandurk, are a pair of siblings. However, they are constantly spreading holy light. The pure halo of holy light sweeps across the battlefield, healing their comrades and bringing about cleansing and destruction to the demons. The city wall destroyer Lucas, who wields a siege hammer, the knight of the long wind slants who wields a spear as swift as the wind, the great sword Saint Fade who is practically a sword saint from another world, the tyrant of plague Kakana who throws alchemy reagents all over the place, and the last dragon knight Timea. Amidst the impassioned beating of the drums, countless legend-ranked knight gather under the Mist's war flag. These brave warriors who have experienced countless battles view the battlefield as a joyous banquet, laughing as they fearlessly charge forward. Mist's war flag. Spirit of Mist. What is that? Ridiculous. When I was young, I thought of myself as the main character of the heavenly mandate. How could I see the inferior knight spirit of the aboriginals? Faced with me who spouted nonsense, my father only patted my shoulder and said, "You are the descendant of Mist, you will understand." When the 12-year-old me was urgently summoned back from the Templar headquarters to lead the army, I thought that I would become a puppet general. After all, I spent most of my time training as a holy knight in the Templar headquarters. Furthermore, the relationship between the Holy Church and the Mist Kingdom isn't good. Furthermore, how could a 12-year-old me convince the masses? But in the end, be it the old generals or the young and energetic genius knight, all of them are completely obedient to my commands. Even if I make an occasional mistake, they would secretly make up for it. Furthermore, during the war, they continuously impart their best skills and various kinds of battle experience to me. As expected of the descendant of Mist. Every time I achieve something or lead a victory, they would say so gleefully, as though it was their own pride. And if I make a wrong judgment due to my lack of experience, they would say, "You are already doing well enough at your age." Using the love an elder has for a descendant, they would forgive me. Then, without any hesitation, they would use their blood, sweat, and even their lives to make up for the losses caused by my mistakes. Using one's life in exchange for growth is invaluable. Facing these adorable people, how can I not grow up quickly? As expected of the descendant of Mist. Slowly, this sentence of praise that made me feel uncomfortable became my greatest glory. The Mist Kingdom is constantly at war with the foreign tribes. This place is far away from the luxurious Central Plains. Although there are precious and rare minerals here, they have to be exchanged for all kinds of rations. Half of the year, the land is sealed in ice. No matter how I look at it, it doesn't seem like a good place. But for thousands of years, these adorable soldiers and civilians have wholeheartedly placed their trust in the descendants of the royal family, the Mist descendants, who protect this barren land. And the Mist royalty repaid their trust with fairness and sacrifice. Every generation, the princes would serve as generals, and every generation of the royalty would take pride in dying on the battlefield. I finally understand what the spirit of Mist is. It isn't some high and mighty doctrine. It is the mist in the valley, an invisible but tangible existence. It is like the fortress on the war flag that is on the verge of collapse in the raging winds. It is the last defense in a desperate situation. You are the descendant of Mist, you will understand. Indeed, Father, I understand. I really didn't expect that I would understand it so quickly. At this moment, we are still on the battlefield filled with ice and fire, and the Mist war flag is still fluttering in the wind. But our battle has yet to end. I am the last descendant of the Mist, a pitiful worm who is unable to even protect his own country and citizens. I admit that we are just a bunch of lonely ghosts, a defeated army that yearns for the human world, but we are indeed the dead, but we are unwilling to die like this. We are indeed a defeated army, but we are unwilling to wallow in the past. There are still too many injustices and tragedies in this world. How can we close our eyes and sleep? Our bodies have yet to rot, our arms are still able to wield weapons. We will mount our horses and charge forward, continuing our crusade against the ambitious tyrants who create war and chaos. The shouts of the knights are the conviction that led them to become undead, the conviction that led them to enter the Valkyrie. Under the fluttering Mist war flag, when I raise the Roland sacred sword and point it forward, the knights use their faith and bravery to repay my trust. Charge. As dutiful cannon fodder, under the command of their master, the bloodthirsty beastman soldiers block in front of us. But right after that, they are like a praying mantis trying to stop a carriage, forcefully pushed over. The one who was beheaded by old Ferdinand in the midst of the chaos, isn't it the beastman emperor who never regrets? He wasn't even stopped for a second. Perhaps, to an ambitious person who casually tramples on the lives of others for his own desires, a worthless death is the most suitable punishment. When the gigantic ancient hell dragon is forcefully commanded by its master to block the charge, this familiar giant dragon has already met her destined opponent. Molly, you're so embarrassing. Before she could dive down to rescue her, the suddenly descending unveils pounces on her, sending her tumbling in midair. That's right. This inferno dragon was the former dragon queen Molly. Due to that unexpected war, she survived as a sacrifice. Then, facing the demon earl, she chose to transform into a demon dragon without any dignity. Inferno dragon. The two ancient dragons are tearing at each other and roaring furiously in midair. The inferno dragon's physical strength is obviously much stronger than the giant dragons of the main plane. However, the one who has the complete advantage is the smaller and younger unveils. Where is the dignity of the dragons that you speak of? Have you eaten them all? I can't bear to see such an ugly sight. Die. The infuriated unveils gives up on the last bit of mercy and hope in her heart. For the first time in her history, she mercilessly attacks Molly. Unveils, the dual element master, displayed her deep understanding of magic. She didn't need to chant any incantations or make any hand gestures. The dragon tribe's bloodline was filled with magic. She only needed to flap her wings and focus her gaze. Wind and fire magic was formed continuously. While the wind increases her speed, it also interferes with Molly's flight. On the other hand, the fire is ever-changing. Sometimes, it turns into smoke to block one's vision, and sometimes, it suddenly explodes in front of the opponent's eyes, shattering their scales. Every attack of unveils carries elemental damage. The more she fights, the colder her heart becomes, and she realizes that she has no chance of winning. Thus, her opportunistic attitude kicks in once again. Without any hesitation, she abandons the boss she just acknowledged and flees without any hesitation. The rapid retreat of the two former autarchs caused a ripple in the battle, and the demon army was pushed back by the charge of the unveils. Not far away, the battle between the 100-meter-tall demon and Adam was right in front of them, and victory was right in front of them. As long as we get rid of the demon army leader who is the summoner, these low-tier demons will naturally be banished back to the bottomless abyss. The war-loving demons cherish their own lives. In the face of the unstoppable assault, they have already started to disperse. But before we arrive, a gigantic figure is the first to be unable to restrain its rage. That gigantic black figure jumps up fiercely. Even though it is a 60-70 meter tall giant beast, it should be slow and sluggish. Instead, it is as agile as a cheetah. It leaps past the few flame balers who are acting as guards and collides violently with the gigantic demon count. That is the Red Hunting Hound's army leader, demonic void hound Bastion. The demon lord that was as huge as a mountain landed on all fours, and its upper limbs were demon halberds. Its upper body was a bit like a sheep, and its lower body looked like an incomparably huge lizard. And Bastet, who was biting with his 3 heads, directly bit off one of his arms. Ah! Filthy worm! The gigantic 3-headed hellhound Bastion. In our knight order, the position of this army leader is never that of a knight. It is a war beast and siege machine. Usually, when the vanguard tore apart the enemy's formation, this gigantic black war beast would jump into the enemy's formation and start to create fatal chaos. Then, the crack would be completely torn apart, becoming an irreparable fatal wound. The reason why it is described as gigantic and not as a number is because its size is never fixed. The middle head of Bastion is the incarnation of rage. It doesn't have a name and doesn't have any rationality. However, it is responsible for using its claws and teeth to tear its opponents apart. When its rage reaches its peak, it would grow even larger due to its rage. To a war beast, a larger size represents an irresistible power, just like how rage is endless. As long as Bastion reverts to his original form and enters the battlefield, as the battle progresses, his rage and enlargement would be endless. There was once a time where after a bitter battle of 2 days and 2 nights, the primordial gold dragon who once suppressed our army was trampled to death by the enraged Bastion, not to mention how many times he destroyed the city walls and gates with his stomp. Usually, he would split into 2 different bodies and maintain his main consciousness in the pitiful form of a skeleton dog just to suppress his boundless rage. If that was the case, he wouldn't be the boss of the 4 heavenly kings, my most trusted and strongest general. The head in the middle, which acted purely on instinct, would only listen to the commands of the other 2 heads. The head on the left was the usual Arbao, subconsciousness, whose gentle voice carried the command of death. The head on the right was Bastion's main consciousness. Bastion, who had a wide field of vision, would let out angry roars from time to time, directing the movements of the entire army. According to the legends, the 3-headed hellhound is the gatekeeper of the Hades. I have only designed a single ability for this Lord of Rage Soul World Hellgate. The 3-headed hellhound roars at the same time and the illusory image of the Hellgate flickers behind them. When Arbao opens the left gate, an undead ally who had just died in battle and whose soul is still intact will be revived. When Bastion opens the right gate, the aura of death will surge out and the lives in the surroundings will swiftly die. Of course, there is a price to pay for reviving. When the right gate brings away 10, only the left gate brings back 1. When both gates are opened at the same time, endless destruction will follow. At this moment, Bastion has already charged into the midst of the demon army. In an instant, Adam, who was using his flame wings to tangle with Carcajil, is reduced to a spectator. When Bastion and Carcajil are engaged in a physical battle, the gate of death is already opened. Endless aura of death rushes out from the Hades and Carcajil feels himself getting weaker and weaker. Even the Baler demon who is strong enough to fight against a dragon falls helplessly on the way to the rescue. Perhaps, as the head of the 7 deadly sins, Bastion's individual fighting prowess isn't comparable to Gluttony's Ardang. However, if it is an army battle, Bastion, who is the reviver, commander and war machine, is still my strongest general. If you can gang up on me, never fight one-on-one. This is indeed what I have said before, and it is also the most basic strategy of war, gathering the superior forces to take down the weaker forces of the enemy. At this moment, when the arm holding the hell halberd and throat are bitten by Bastion and the god sword of the man in the sky chases after the vitals of the demon lord, the lone demon noble is unable to move and is destined to become a living target of the army's assault. In front of the absolute army formed by 24,620 Valkyrie, no matter how strong the individual strength of the demon noble is, he will only end up being crushed. However, facing a hopeless situation, the furious demon activates his talent that he can only use once a day. Soul Extraction Curse. That is a powerful curse created by the combination of a demon lord and the semigod equipment Karkagil's soul-burning lamp. The target that is attacked by this curse will be forcefully extracted from their soul body. How can the soul body that has escaped the protection of the physical body resist the attraction of the soul-burning lamp? However, it is a pity that he chose the wrong target. The gigantic finger points towards me and the black runes of the curse spread across his body like a spider web. However, in the next second, everything calms down. Indeed, if the summoner of the soul world were to die, the soul world would disappear and the royal knight would be reduced to their original form as an undead knight. Thus, using his strongest talent to kill me in an instant is indeed the correct choice in terms of strategy. However, even though I look like a living person, I am actually a dead person. Putting aside how to extract a soul from a dead person, even the river Styx, who has the strongest ability to absorb and devour souls, is unable to do anything to my soul. What does this semigod equipment amount to? Charred. The emperor that they are loyal to is suddenly attacked, causing the knights to be enraged. Even without my orders, they wouldn't stop their charge. Under the buff of the holy light in a large area, the silver bow, carrying the holy light that is the nemesis of demons, turns into a rain of arrows that covers the sky. The tip of the arrow is filled with the nemesis of demons, the power of holy light. Like a corrosive poison that targets living beings, the wound that it touches expands rapidly. The area around the wound starts to blister and explode. Perhaps, it might not be able to deal much damage to the gigantic demon count, but it is definitely painful. Ah! Darned little worm! The demon count flies into a rage and flings the gigantic bastet into the air. His remaining hand continues to summon destructive forbidden spell. However, my knights won't sit idly by and watch as the demon count displays his might. When the Valkyrie mags start to display their might, countless magic counters forcefully cause the demon count's fire meteor rain forbidden spell to fail time and time again. In the end, it turns into a small flame in the palm of his hand. This is the helplessness of a great mage who doesn't have a meat shield. Facing the magic suppression of a group of mags, to be able to release a small flame shows that his foundations are strong enough. When Camisia first smashes a terrifying hole in the tower-like leg, the knights are like a group of man-eating ants that devour a giant, creating terrifying wounds on the body of the demon count. When Adam takes the opportunity to cast the blessing of the phoenix into Karkagil's eyes, causing him to wail in agony and turning him into a one-eyed dragon, Bastet grows stronger once again and presses Karkagil to the ground. At this moment, everyone knows that the powerful demon count is finished. It can't be said that Karkagil isn't strong, but this is a war and not a duel. No matter how strong an individual is, there is a limit to it. He rolls on the ground in pain and uses the demon war halberd to hit the little worm on his body. However, this is no different from suicide. The corrosive blood of the demon flows out continuously, and due to the excessive corrosion, the surrounding land starts to turn into scorched earth. Very quickly, when his head is chopped off, the demon Count Karkagil finally falls and his humongous body starts to turn into dust. This time, he descended with his true body. Even if he can revive, he has to start from the lowest tier of inferior demons. Following the fall of the summoner, the demons disappear one by one. They are banished back to their own dimension. This time, they didn't manage to harvest many souls. After the exhaustion of going back and forth, the losses can't be recovered even after a few hundred years. Victory. When the horn that represents victory is blown, not only on the battlefield, even Sulphur Mountain City not too far away is filled with a sea of joy. Regardless of whether they knew each other before or not, the citizens hugged each other and gave their blessings, celebrating their survival from the calamity. But, my troubles have just started. Clang. The Crimson God Sword and the Silver Sacred Sword clashes fiercely against each other. Even though it is their lord who was attacked, the Valkyrie Knights look on as though they are watching a show. Some of them even start to make bets while giggling. They are just short of taking out their stools and melon seeds to watch the battle. Adam's foolish face is right in front of them. The angry roar that is squeezed out from the gaps of his teeth is filled with deep resentment. Roland, no, brother Rolo, perhaps, it is time for us to settle our old debt.